Hi everyone, and welcome to our very impromptu live stream about the Nordic news live. But this time we will be covering some other European issues, so I didn't put the Nordic in the headline. So the truck of peace. So it's back, and in Berlin, a truck plowed through a crowd of people at a Christmas market. And according to the latest reports, at least 9 people are dead and 50 are injured. So do tell, are you shocked and surprised as our media claims to be?
Well, there are car accidents that happen every day. And let's not jump to conclusions, but
yeah, it could have been a tourist mistaken.
Yeah, the license plate being Polish, it could be a small accident.
Yes, some drunken Polish truck driver actually mistaking the Christmas market for the highway. Or some tourist who's just desperate to get to the market in time before closing and makes a terrible judgment decision.
Yes, there were two people in that truck, and one has been caught by the police and the other one is dead. So we should get some information.
But yes, we will be keeping an eye out for the headlines as this live stream goes on, so we'll give you some updates if we find them. And I know the media is supposed to be objective and it shouldn't jump to conclusions, but sometimes it just gets ridiculous. Like now they say, it's not yet sure if this was like an accident or a crime. Like really?
Yeah, but when they speak about terrorism, they say that in the European Union there are more people who die in car accidents than by terrorists. now it's what is the excuse here?
And it's such a terrible excuse anyway. Like everybody knows people die in traffic. Traffic in the end is something that is useful for everyone. So it's a controlled risk. We know that we take a risk when we use traffic and use cars, but the benefits are so large for people and society that we still do it and we accept the risk. But when it comes to this Muslim immigration, there are no benefits that come from it. It's not a controlled risk. And what's the point in saying, well, people die in car accidents way more often? Like, should we wait for the time when 0 people die in car accidents before we can say anything about Muslims plowing trucks through crowds of people on European holidays?
Yes. And when you are in the Christmas market, you are not expecting to die in a car accident.
Exactly. And this is so much like Nice. Like I watched the videos from the scene and they were exactly the same. You could hear sirens at the background, people were panicking and shouting and running around. You could see the truck in the background. And unlike the Nice attack, there were 2 attackers, as Juneste said, and one apparently died at the scene. I don't know if the cops killed him or if he killed himself. Anyway, he's dead. And the other attacker first got away, but he was caught later on. So most likely the motive will start coming up soon because, well, the ethnicity and background of these attackers will most likely say enough about that. And they say that the truck was driving like 65 kilometers an hour. So that's a very high speed for a crowded area or a city area in general. So it's highly unlikely that this would be any sort of accident. So it's absolutely ridiculous that the media still tries to be so neutral that they say, oh, but we don't know if this was an accident. And they say, okay, it's suspected that this is a terrorist attack. Like really, it's suspected. And I know we are going to go through the normal drill over here too, like people will pretend to be shocked, they will pretend to be surprised, then they will come up with the generic signs of empathy, the hashtags, the profile pic filters, stuff like that, and then it'll stay in the headlines and as a Twitter topic for maybe week, 2 at most. Then people will forget about it and the cycle will start again when the next attack happens.
There's already one who's writing in Twitter, send all my love to Berlin, hashtag pray for Berlin, hashtag Breitscheidplatz, hashtag pray for Germany, hashtag Weihnachtsmarkt, hashtag stay strong.
Like these fucking praying doesn't do shit. Like it's not praying that killed these people. Praying doesn't.
And there's one, stop using tragedies to further your racist and Islamophobic agenda.
Islamophobic. And imagine these people, like this is the first thing that comes to this person's mind. Like he hears, or was it a she? Hears that 9 people have died at least 50 people are injured, and he goes on to think about Islamophobes and racists, and they are the real bad guys. Like, don't you go being fucking racist even though 9 people are dead. It's not the truck driver, it's not the Muslim who's the bad guy, it's the racist. Like, these people are so quick to change the subject when something unpleasant to their ideology happens. And I think we saw an epitome of this over here in Finland when the Brussels attack occurred. Because the right-wing party, or the center-right party, Kokoomus in Finland, their reaction to the Brussels attack was a tweet in which they said that even though these kind of nasty things happen from time to time, we should always remember that racism is the big issue over here and we shouldn't get into racism. Like, they didn't give a second thought to the victims, they didn't give a second thought to the threat of Islamic terrorism, the uncontrolled immigration. It was just racism. Like, that was their instant reaction.
Christmas markets in Germany are symbols for peace, love, humanity. No act of terror is going to take these values away.
Okay, but those values aren't going to protect anyone if they aren't protected themselves. Like, values, they are just abstract things. And you having good values or better values than these terrorists isn't going to save you if you don't do anything to protect yourself. Like, if these people come at you with trucks and guns and bombs, and you say, okay, but I have the moral superiority, I have the greatest values in the country, on the entire earth, then it's not going to protect you.
Please respect the severity of the situation and keep your anti-Muslim hatred for yourselves.
Yeah, it's the anti-Muslim, like, then they are immediately looking for the real bad guys. The real bad guys who are the Islamophobes and the racists. It's not the terrorists who kill people. It's those who say nasty things about Muslims or say that there might be some connection with Islam and these people blowing up and driving trucks into crowds all across Europe.
He seems to be sure that it's Muslims.
Yeah. So maybe he's an Islamophobe too, because he seems to immediately think that it's Muslims.
There's one in German writing that we don't know the background, we don't know the people who did this, so fuck you, Nazis.
And this Finnish blogger with this Irani background called Alan Salehzadeh, he often has pretty reasonable blog posts, but at times he's very apologetic about multiculturalism and Islam, and he's an atheist himself, and he says that the moderate Muslims are the victims of political Islam. And when he talks about political Islam, he basically means just Islam or Islamism. He just uses that as an euphemism so that he doesn't sound like an Islamophobe. When he doesn't have to talk about the entire Islam, he means political Islam. So it's a way to get around the Islamophobia issue. And he says that in the Middle East, people understand well the connection between terrorism and political Islam, #Berlin. So you can see how this guy is at times right. Like, he says that there is a connection between terrorism and Islam, and that's pretty radical for over here in Finland. That's usually a thing racist people only say over here, racist people like us, that maybe there's some connection between Islam and Muslims being 95% of this year's terrorists. But he still says that, okay, it's the moderate Muslims who are the victims of political Islam. Okay, so were these 9 people who got killed and the 50 people who got injured, were they moderate Muslims? No, moderate Muslims, they aren't victims, they are enablers, because they support the Islamism, they create the breeding ground for it, they create the atmosphere in their own countries in which it's virtuous and good to believe in things without evidence, to believe that the Quran is the word of God, even though there's no evidence for it, even though it's you can see that it's really destructive for your own people and you. It's these moderate Muslims who create that breeding ground. They create that attitude climate in which these extremists are bred, because you need to have these moderates who say that it's virtuous to believe without evidence for these extremists to come up. So no, they aren't victims, they are enablers. They are almost just as bad as the terrorists themselves.
Yes, but there's the owner of the truck that says something, but I'm not sure what.
And let's see what's going on in Twitter about this. Okay, there's such a generic stuff about remembering the victims and stuff like that.
Well, the police in Berlin are asking not to spread videos from the crime scene.
Why?
But, it's to respect privacy. Something.
And it's funny how they come up with that privacy issue when it's Islamic terrorism, because when it was the dead body of Aylan Kurdi on the coast of Mediterranean, that picture was everywhere. And nobody had any problem with spreading that photo around. But when it's the little girl lying dead on the street of Nice after the truck attack, then suddenly these people say, okay, don't spread these pictures, these are disrespectful. And no, of course they don't. That's only an excuse. They really don't want those pictures and videos to show because they are inconvenient for their ideology. They make Muslims look really bad, and they make Europeans appear the victims of Muslims, as they really are. And of course, that doesn't fit the multiculturalist ideology in which Muslims are always the victims. They are never the evildoers. So they don't want us to have any symbols about that. They want those photos like the Aylan Kurdi photo, which they can use as a symbol for getting more refugees in. But they don't want those symbolic photos for us about the European victims. And while we are waiting for new information on that, I'd like to pick up a tweet from a viewer of my channel called Karim Saad. And he has linked me this article of the Daily Star that Geer Wilders is named the Dutch Politician of the Year, or is it Geert or something?
Yes, Geert.
So these Geert Wilders, he of course is a leader of the Dutch Freedom Party, and he has lately gotten a lot of publicity for being prosecuted for hate speech and discrimination. And this all came from his one speech in which he asked a series of questions from the audience. For example, he asked, okay, do you want less EU control or more EU control? And stuff like that. And at one point he asked if these people want less Moroccans in their country, because there's a huge problem with Moroccans in the Netherlands. Like there are these gangs that commit a lot of crimes. Like they are simply a pretty destructive bunch when you look at the crime statistics for Moroccans. So it's no wonder people want these criminals deported from their country. And it really wasn't about hate speech against Moroccans as people, but about these criminals who should be deported but are never deported. And this Wilders, he promised that if he gets elected, he makes sure that there will be less Moroccans in the country, that he will make a stricter immigration policy, he will make sure that the criminal Moroccans are deported. And he later on explained that the reason he took that up was that an elderly Moroccan woman had approached him and told him that she's going to vote for him in the next election because she is so sick of the Moroccan gangs making her living environment a complete hell. So Wilders didn't get convicted for hate speech, but he got convicted for discrimination against Moroccans. And the decision was pretty funny because in that court decision, the court treated Moroccans like they are a race on their own. And I don't know, you are a Moroccan person, do you think that was discrimination, and do you think Moroccans are a race?
Well, who cares if you get a trial? Just say, yeah. So, well, what happens? As long as you don't have to pay anything or go to jail, those trials are just they are nonsense. And in fact, it just gives him a free commercial for him. He gets live TV coverage from the court where he can hold speeches, and it just turns the people even more against the establishment and all this nonsense that is happening.
Yes, and it actually shows in polls, because after the Wilders trial, it turned out that Wilders had only become more popular among people. So he's very likely to win the next election. And it's very apparent that the trial had a lot to do with that, because it gave him such a boost in popularity. So it was a pretty bad decision to charge him with anything. And it's the same thing over here in Finland. People get charged for different kinds of hate speech all the time. And it's become a complete joke. Like, nobody takes these charges or trials in any way seriously. They are complete jokes that people simply say, okay, I'll get some fines, I'll pay them off, that's that. And in most cases, people even gather money for these people who get prosecuted for hate speech. So they don't even have to pay the fines themselves. Their friends help them with that. So it only uses up our justice system's resources, but it doesn't achieve anything. And often it only makes these hate speakers more popular, like Terhi Kiemunki, who was completely unknown before she said nasty things about Muslim teenagers. And then suddenly she became a countrywide celebrity because she got first in that Muslim kid scandal, in which she said something about Muslim kids who were following this Finnish Easter tradition. And later on, she wrote a blog post about Muslims, and the title was something like, "When the dream is reality, it's too late for regrets." And she talked about multiculturalism and how Islam is a destructive religion, and ended up on trial for that. And she got some fines, of course, for it. And she doesn't care. Nobody cares. Of course, these are just jokes. And of course, you are most likely ending up on trial for hate speech.
Yes, I have subtitled one video, and the police want to interrogate me, but I just said that I don't want to, and that's that. So and even if there's a trial, who cares? It's they are just making themselves. They discredit themselves. It just the people. They don't believe anymore in the system. If for a few words you get fined, people don't accept this, and they can go on with those fake trials, but it's who cares?
And in Finland, it's actually so that people who were born in Morocco have the highest per capita rate of committing hate crimes. And I've actually wondered that, are there other people who commit hate crimes, or is it just you creating that statistic?
Well, the thing is that a hate crime can be subtitling a video. It can be killing a person. So it's a very broad spectrum there. So I don't know.
And the video is also available over here in my channel. I don't remember what the title was. It was something about the
based French guy hate speaks.
Yes, that was it. So the video is available over here too. So I don't know, is there more about Wilders? So okay, so let's see what this prize was about. This named Dutch Politician of the Year. Who named him? So
it's a survey made by an institute.
Yeah, and wasn't it Wilders who was extremely popular among the people, but extremely unpopular among fellow politicians?
Yes, and this is the fourth time that he wins this Dutch Politician of the Year award, and it's well, it's like in every other countries. It's he's a guy who speaks like normal people about concrete problems, and he proposes realistic solutions to these problems, whereas the other ones are saying that you should treat Islam like, the other ones say that Islam is a religion like the others, so you have to treat it the same way because the constitution and so on. But it's not like that, and he's one of these politicians that say that it should not be treated the same, and it's like if you bring problems from abroad, and then you try to apply the law that is currently in the Western countries. So it's like if we brought some cannibal tribes here, and we would be obliged to, we have to treat them equally. It's complete nonsense, and that's one thing that the other politicians refuse to acknowledge.
Yeah, it's
they just read the constitution, and they have this autistic view on human rights and equality and so on, where you have to see the big picture and not apply everything like they do.
Yeah, and it's this ideological autism that, okay, because it's a religion, because they say it's a religion, then it must be treated as every other religion, because all religions are equal and they are all basically the same. And of course that's not so, and you could easily prove it, for example, in Germany, where they have pretty strict laws about Nazism because of that unfortunate past. And if you found a church in Germany that was in name religious and it worshipped Adolf Hitler as a deity, then would it be allowed? Like, would Germans say, and German politicians, especially people like Merkel, would they go, okay, it's a religion, so we must treat it as any other religion because of religious freedom? Of course they wouldn't. They would say that it's a hate cult. And that's exactly what they should say about Islam. And this autism about rules, about human rights, about these basic freedoms that were targeted for us, for people who respect the value of other human beings, people who respect the rights of others, they shouldn't be broadened so much that these religions and political systems that are fundamentally opposed to human rights, that are opposed to the rights of others, that they should be protected under those laws. Because these freedoms and rights, they only work when all people in the same country have a certain respect for each other, like they live by those rights and freedoms and they are willing to let other people have them too. But Muslims, they aren't willing to let other people have those. They are abusing those rights and freedoms they get as much as they can, but they don't want us to have the same rights. We've seen that with the Charlie Hebdo attacks, with these all other terrorist attacks, that they don't have any respect for our religious freedom or our right to have our culture and our ways, our women's right to dress the way they like. So of course they shouldn't have the same rights as we do, because they don't respect the rights of others. And what were the, I don't know, maybe we should take a look at if there's any updates on the terrorist attack.
Well, it can be only a car accident. Okay,
so Breitbart says this. Ariel Surawski, a Polish man who is said to own the truck used in the attack, has claimed via Polish TV channel TVN24 that he lost contact with the driver, also his cousin, around noon local time. Surawski claimed that he could not see his cousin as having committed the attack and thought it likely he had been hijacked. And this is something that came to my mind too when I heard the license plates were Polish, that most likely the truck was stolen. What do you think?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
Because if you try to rent a truck, first of all, it takes a lot of money, and then they will check if you have the correct driver's license, that you have a license to drive that kind of thing. So it might get difficult, but if you just steal it, then it's no problem.
Yeah, and the fact that it's Polish, it's well, every other truck has Polish license plates in Germany, so it's nothing special.
And they still say it's 9 dead, so luckily that hasn't gone up. Some new photos and videos have also come up of the event. But it's really funny that now they start talking about not showing images, because I have seen a lot of images from this scene. For example, the Daily Mail had a lot of photos if you want to see them. And I didn't see any of the victims in those photos, so I don't see what is disrespectful about that. Of course, it was a terrible scene, like it was very chaotic, but I didn't see any mangled bodies or anything like that in the photos. So what's the problem with sharing those photos? And of course, I would urge everyone to repost these photos and repost these articles with the photos, because they are obviously trying to censor these. So make sure they spread around. And I thought maybe we should say something about the racist child who was raped in Sweden.
Before you change the subject, there's Washington Times reporting that ISIS is taking credit for this attack, but of course we cannot be sure if.
But at least until now, I don't remember one single terrorist attacks in Western countries of which ISIS would have taken responsibility, but hadn't really done it. when ISIS takes responsibility for these attacks, it pretty much always has turned out that they really did it. Like, do you remember any attacks in which they lied about committing them?
No.
Like, there have even been some extreme cases like the machete attack in Germany, of which the German police tried to lie to the public and the German media that no, there were no ISIS connections. But then ISIS came up with, okay, it was us, and here is the video of the guy who did it. He was training with us. Here's him with us. So the German cops were busted big time with that. ISIS was the more reliable news source than the German cops. In ISIS we trust.
But yeah, the problem with this is that it's impossible to prevent these attacks, because even if you give the police unlimited resources, anybody can just do this. You hijack a truck, you can build bombs, you can do anything, and I don't see how the police can do anything, especially in Finland, where the police are a bit not so trained on this thing.
And of course, in the comment section, somebody asks about the Turkish cop or a guard shooting the Russian ambassador. Maybe we should talk a bit about that before we move on to the racist kid.
Yeah, in the Turkish city of Ankara, there was a Russian ambassador that was holding a speech, and a Turkish guy who was his bodyguard shot him while shouting Allahu Akbar. So it might have some connections to Islam.
And this guy who did the shooting was apparently the bodyguard, as he said. So I don't know. Usually these are outsiders, so maybe this was some kind of a plot that had taken a longer time to build. Maybe this guy had been radicalized all along. Maybe he was radicalized. Maybe he was paid for it. Nobody knows. Like, that's pretty surprising, because usually they are just these average guys who infiltrate these events and then they start blowing up. But this guy was in the inner circle, like he was the bodyguard, so that's a bit surprising. And also, of course, there's the fact that it all ended up on live television. The death of the ambassador, it was clearly visible. Like, you could see that at one moment he was speaking, then he simply fell behind the podium. And the shooter started shouting stuff about Allah, of course, and Allahu this and that. And then he said something about Aleppo. He was accusing Russians of the situation in Aleppo and saying that people should remember Aleppo and stuff like that. And of course, he ended up shot himself. And now Putin is saying that there will be a huge investigation about whether this was some sort of high-level conspiracy, because it seems pretty suspicious.
He didn't shoot himself. It was the police who shot him, I think.
Yeah. So, and when we were watching the video of the event, we just had to wonder how the guy who was filming it all kept his cool. Like, I would have been scared shitless had I been there. But there was no screaming or anything. The cameraman just apparently stood there.
And had there not been this live TV coverage, would these videos have been published? Maybe not.
Most likely not. And it's also weird that there was a third weird event on the same day, like this shooting in Zurich, Switzerland. In front of this Islamic center, there was some sort of shooting, and 3 people ended up dead, and the police over there is being very silent about this. They aren't saying anything about the shooters or about the victims, and they aren't even saying if the shooting had anything to do with the Islamic center it happened in front of. And all these happened on the same day, so in a way it creates this suspicion that maybe this was all coordinated the way the Paris attacks were, like these people committed these attacks on the same time in different places, and they were all parts of the same conspiracy. And maybe these were ISIS attacks too. Who knows? And I'm trying to see if there's anything new about that. Yes, Putin says that he doesn't believe the killer acted alone, and he says that there will be an investigation on who gave the order for the killing. So this might grow up into a huge diplomatic crisis, and of course Russia and Turkey, they aren't on the best terms with each other anyway. Like Russia has given instructions for its people not to visit Turkey for holidays, and it's been a big economic stress for Turkey to lose all those Russian tourists. And there were, of course, the problems with the shooting down of the Russian airplane, and that was what started it all. And then, of course, NATO was dragged into it because Turkey is a NATO country, and obviously the rest of the NATO countries really didn't want to get dragged into anything like that with Russia. And I don't think this will make it any better between Russia and Turkey. So this kind of stuff is pretty dangerous because, after all, whether we like it or not, Turkey is a NATO country. So if there is an altercation between Russia and Turkey, it might end up as a World War III. So these things really shouldn't be overlooked or underestimated on how dangerous they can get. And there's a Finnish, how would you say, researcher who says that this shooting was extremely serious. And he also reminds that this is how the First World War started. So let's see how this ends up. And for now, I can't see much new on this issue. So maybe we should, at this point, take up the Swedish kid. So as you might know, in Sweden, there's this unimaginable rape crisis. And there's something like 60,000 women a year who get raped.
No, it's 6,500 police reports every year. Yes,
and around 83% of the rapists are immigrants or immigrant-born. So they make up a pretty decent portion of them, and are pretty overrepresented in the sexual crime statistics. And these crimes happen a lot in these cities where the immigrant populations are large, like Stockholm or Malmö. And now in the city of Malmö, which is pretty much one of the worst places in Sweden, like there are these immigrant neighborhoods that are very unsafe. There are shootings, there are even grenade attacks and stuff like that. It's really not the place where you would like to move in. And there have been a lot of rapes over there. And the cops are often basically powerless against them. They don't catch these people. There's no chance of catching them. And 33 rape reports have been filed in Malmö this year. And 8 of the victims have been children. And all of these cases are still unsolved. They haven't caught any of these people. And they have now placed a 14-member police special unit to solve these crimes because they aren't getting anywhere with this. And now there was this rape of a young child, and the police ended up giving some details about the looks of the guy. So the police said that the suspect is a male, aged between 19 and 26. He is 165 to 170 centimeters tall. He has big ears, big nose, a bit of a beard, and light brown skin and dark curly hair. And he doesn't speak Swedish. So naturally that means that he's an maybe Middle Eastern or North African immigrant. But Jerzy Sarnecki, a professor of criminology in Stockholm University, is very outraged about this description of the suspect. He says this: it seems that the police is desperate and at the dead end with its investigations. The description of the suspect is unheardably stereotypical and feeds prejudice. And he also reminds that the descriptions only come from one source, and the person who gave the description is a child. Yes, it's the child, it's the person who got raped who gave this description. So this professor is outraged about this rapist looking stereotypical. And he's even giving this slight insinuation that this kid is being racist by giving this stereotypical description of the rapist. Like, what was the kid supposed to say? Like, if the guy looked like this, what was the kid supposed to say?
It would be very funny to interview this so-called professor.
Maybe we should call him.
Maybe, but yeah, preferably face to face. Maybe we can find him on Skype or something.
And and what were the cops supposed to do? If this was the description they got, then what were they supposed to do? Like, were they supposed to maybe whitewash these features, say that, okay, he had a light skin and a light straight hair, blue eyes maybe, add some new features in there? Like, I don't understand where this professor is going to. And then that he actually has the guts to say, okay, and this description only comes from this one source, and it's a child. Well, of course it's a child because it was a child who got raped. And of course it's the victim who gives the description because there was nobody else around. And isn't this a bit of rape apologetics, saying that this victim is basically a racist for giving this stereotypical description, and that saying that the victim can't be a reliable witness because it's only that one person and because she's a child. So if you're a child and you get raped, then you have no rights because you're not a reliable witness. Like, Sweden is going down the drain so fast, and at times when I see stories like this, I get this urge to laugh because it's just funny. Like, there is something absurd about this, but then you remember that these are real people we are talking about, that this is a real country. It's not some parody. But I don't understand. At what point will the Swedish people stop and start to think about this? Like, how did we end up here? How did we end up to the point that we can't even give descriptions about rapists, and we are basically accusing child victims of rapists about being racist and being unreliable witnesses?
I have no idea.
And this is what the professor has the problem with. Like, he doesn't talk about rape crisis. He doesn't talk about the huge rise in sex crimes against women. He doesn't talk about the Muslim rape problem, that it's always Muslim migrants who commit these crimes. his problem is with the stereotypical racist description. That's the huge issue here, not the rape crisis or the rape of a child. It's this.
This is how the guy looks, the so-called professor.
And he's an immigrant himself.
Yeah, that's a Polish name.
And I absolutely hate this. This guy, he's not even a Muslim, most likely. He's most like some sort of a Polish guy or something. Mm. And why is he defending these people or fighting for them? Like, him being an immigrant doesn't mean that he has to be loyal to these people who he has nothing in common with. And it's weird that people always take these sides, that if you are an immigrant or if you are somehow ethnic, then you are always on the side of other immigrants, no matter what they do. Never on the side of the native population. So that's what the guy looks like. And it's just such a perfect example of the Swedish insanity. Like, this is what they allow their countries to become. Like, this is a warning example. And Sweden now has this feminist government that has also created this new project in which they try to combat racism. And they have actually given a lot of money to this project. And they are just absolutely in denial. Like, in that feminist government, these ministers, they believe that it's racism that's the root issue. Like, that's the real problem people in Sweden face on street day in and day out. It's like they are so out of touch with reality. They have no idea what the people are dealing with.
And this professor is saying that the girl is spreading stereotypes about criminals, but what does that mean?
If they are stereotypical.
If well, not all guys rape, but this is complete nonsense. First of all, in Malmö, this Swedish city, 51% of the inhabitants are foreigners. So the Swedish are a minority there. But if the girl sees or reports that the rapist looked like that, how is she spreading stereotypes? And well, if there's already been 33 victims, maybe it's a good thing that the police starts to do something. Maybe they should have done something before, but
okay, so here's a question for you. Jonas, as an immigrant, well, I wouldn't say he's an immigrant, but how often do you face racism from people in Finland? My wife is immigrant and not once has she faced racism.
Well, I'm not an immigrant, but there's no racism in Finland.
Well, I have to admit that if Finland was a rampantly racist country, I most likely would have noticed it by now. Like, I have at occasions been mistaken for a Romani. And on those occasions, I have encountered this mild racism of, say, store clerks being a bit suspicious about me, looking very closely at what I'm doing. But that's pretty understandable when you know how Romanis are. And if Finland was rampantly racist, you'd think that we couldn't even go outside without being faced with some racist slurs or something, maybe even violent attacks. But nothing ever happens. And it's actually the racists who are pretty supportive of you in general. And it's the anti-racists who hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of racism in the anti-racist people.
Yeah, and I actually have this theory that anti-racists and the social justice warriors in general, that they actually are the most outrageous people you can imagine, but they are trying to suppress it. But they have this huge urge to call people niggers, and to call women bitches and whores and use all sorts of foul language. But because they've been brainwashed into political correctness, they feel that they have to suppress it. And it makes them very angry and frustrated people. And that's why you see them raging online all the time. And even here, sometimes in the comment section of our live streams, like in the last live stream where Minna Lavikainen was trolling and fuming. And you can see that when they get their first chance of being outrageous, using those slurs, they take it. Like if they face a woman who's anti-immigration or anti-multiculturalism, anti-feminism, they immediately start using sexist slurs about her. Like the anti-sexist feminist agenda of them, it immediately drops. And if they see an ethnic person who's against immigration or multiculturalism, they immediately start with the racial slurs like the Saint nigger stuff and things like that. So it's pretty obvious that they are actually the people who have the deep yearning to use this kind of language. And because they project their own feelings to other people, they imagine that other people must be raging racist and sexist too, because they feel like that. They want to call people niggers, they want to call women bitches, but they don't get the opportunity too often. So they assume other people are like that too, but they don't get it that most people aren't crazy like that. And that's where the problem lies. And there was something else here in the comment section too that caught my eye, but now I don't remember what it was. Yes, the feminist snow plowing. And I don't think many people outside the Nordic area have heard about it, so maybe we should take that up. And there was even some mention of multiculturalist snow plowing. So because Sweden has this collective insanity, in Stockholm they attempted feminist snow plowing. They decided that the snow plowing system of the city was sexist because the first places to be plowed were these roads used by professionals, mostly by men, these big roads, highways, things like that. So they decided to be a feminist and first plow the small roads. Those roads women use when they are walking with their children, places like that. And of course it landed the city traffic in complete chaos, and they had to quit the feminist snow plowing project pretty quickly. And I don't know, maybe they'll try the multiculturalist snow plowing soon, that they'll first start plowing with the immigrant neighborhoods and then move on to the bigger streets.
Yes, but there's problem with that is that if they start there, the equipment gets burned. So,
they don't make it out alive.
But here's some Finnish political small talk. So there's two politicians. One is saying that there's an outrageous attack in Berlin, and my thoughts go to Berlin. And the other guy answers, "Fuck you, you fucking moron. You are just a hypocrite. You are not thinking of Berlin." And he's right.
Absolutely right. And I'm so sick of these fucking hypocrites who always pretend to be so empathetic. Oh, I'm so terribly sorry for what happened in Paris, in Nice, in Berlin, in Normandy, etc., etc. And when you ask them, okay, but what are you going to do about this? Like, how are you going to prevent these attacks from happening in our country? Like, are you going to put a stop to the uncontrollable immigration? Are you going to do something about the Islamization of our country? Then of course, no, that's racist. So they pretend to be empathetic, but of course they aren't thinking about the victims. They are only thinking about their own agenda.
Yeah, and they are bringing the same problem to Finland, and that's they are doing nothing to prevent this. And I told before about the Finnish police, and one good example is that 1.5 years ago, one guy sent an email to actually that guy whose Twitter I showed.
Who's actually our Minister of the Interior or the Secretary of State, depending on what language you use.
And one guy sent him an email in which he told that he is going to shoot him at his home. And that guy used a fake Yahoo account that he created with a name similar to mine.
Yeah, the death threat was sent with the name Juluslokka, and of course this guy is Juneslokka, so there's difference there.
Finnish police decided to raid my apartment, and they took this computer and they looked if I had sent that email, and they never found the guy who did send the email. So that's their level of professionalism.
Like, these are the people who are supposed to protect us from terrorists. Like, they get this kind of situation that somebody sends a death threat to the Secretary of State, signed with the name Juluslokka, and these guys at the police station, they go, okay, there's this one guy who has a similar sounding name. Let's just raid his home. Let's go. And that's the level of investigation. Like, they could have found out the IP address. They could have contacted Yahoo for that. Like, they could have located the guy, or at least tried to locate the guy via these technical means, these actually investigative means, instead of just putting 1 + 1 and 2 together and getting 5. And of course, it was completely absurd that they would raid your house. Like, if I send an email with some very common name in Finland, would they raid the houses of all people who had the similar sounding name? Of course they wouldn't.
Yeah, and why would I use a fake name in the first place? But
yeah, and the excuses they gave that, okay, you have this aggressive reputation, and
yeah, and they kept me 22 hours in jail for that, and no excuses, nothing. They just said, "Oh, we made a mistake, but we had our suspicions." So. So imagine a guy decides to hijack a truck in Finland and start killing people.
But
how is the police preventing that?
No, of course they aren't. But you really missed
even if the truck driver sent.
What was the phrase in French?
Even if the truck driver sent an email saying that I will run with my truck, they would not prevent it.
But at last, you missed a great opportunity there. Like, you could have started shouting Allahu Akbar and stuff like that at the police station. You could have pretended to be Muslim, so the media would have had to say that, okay, there's this Muslim guy who's Muslim immigrant from Morocco who's being suspected of sending death threats to the Secretary of State. It would have been pretty funny.
Maybe.
They would have had a bit of a problem with that, because if it's a known racist who does something like that, or is suspected of doing something like that even, then of course they run with it. But had you pretended to be a Muslim, most likely it wouldn't even have reached the news. And let's see what else was in the... Yes, and there was this... first I could check out for updates for that terrorist attacks, if there's any new information. You could maybe open something there to see. No, at least the Finnish media is going with the generic stuff, with the local FBI giving a statement on whether this has any effect on the security situation over here in Finland, and with the politicians say, okay, this is a terrible crime against European values and blah, blah, blah. Such a tragedy. But let's see if the foreign media has anything new on this. Okay, Daily Mail says, Christmas market carnage, hijacked Polish lorry plows into crowd of Berlin shoppers at 40 miles an hour, killing 9 and injuring 50. And they say police indicated the incident is likely to be a terror attack as driver is arrested and passenger in cab died. I wonder how the passenger died. Like, did he die in the crash, or did he kill himself? Did the driver shoot him or something? I saw the picture of the truck, and I could share that with you over here. Just a moment. So over here you can see the truck, and it's very possible that the other assailant or the person who was riding in the truck with the assailant might have died in that attack itself, because the windshield is pretty shattered. So something has hit that pretty hard, and you can see that there are these street lights in there. So maybe it has hit one of these, because these are pretty low, as you can see. Or maybe some sort of traffic light or something.
And the lights are at this height.
Yeah, they are higher than they appear. But maybe a sign like this.
Maybe the passenger was a hostage.
Yes, that's something that came to my mind too, that maybe the passenger who died was the owner or the driver of the truck, and he was there as a hostage, that his truck was hijacked. If his cousin who owned the truck said that he had lost contact with him on noon, then maybe he has been hijacked all the time. Like, he has been held hostage there, and this guy has been preparing for the attack. And here you can see more detailed photos of the truck. So it really is pretty smashed from the front. There are some victims being taken away. And they say that there were some people who were caught under the truck, and the police and the fire department were trying to get them out. Like, these people were squeezed under the truck, so they had no way of getting out without help. And here you can see the scene from further, and it's no wonder a lot of people died, because most likely if this street has been completely stacked, it could have even been much worse, like in Nice. Like, how many people was it that died in Nice?
84 or 86.
So this could have been a lot worse, even if it, of course, it's really bad now, but still, it could have been so much worse. And of course, it's no surprise that they would do this on Christmas time, and that it would be a Christmas market that is attacked, because, of course, ISIS most likely will target Christian holidays and all these other signs of Western culture, like in the Nice attack, when it was the French Bastille Day. What's the correct word for that?
Well, there.
Is it Independence Day or something?
No, it's the National Day.
Yes, National Day. So they are clearly targeting all these symbols of Western culture. So we'll wait for more updates on that. So in the meanwhile, I could take up this one funny case from Finland. And I will have more information on this tomorrow, but I'll give you something now. So there was a guy in the town of Joensuu who got new neighbors. And these new neighbors were a family of Somalis. And it didn't take long for him to end up on pretty bad terms with these neighbors. And when these Somali neighbors moved in, they claimed that these Finnish people, this Finnish couple who had lived there, had been racist towards them. And when these Somalis had moved in, they had brought a pretty terrible stink with them. And this is nothing new. Like this has been on the news before, that people end up prosecuted for hate speech for saying these people smell, when they really smell like they cook these foods that smell terrible. They have a very broad sense of what hygiene means. So naturally, these very sterile Finnish people have a problem with that. And this man says that this happened on 13th of April. He had gone out to walk the dog, and he had to walk past the apartment of the Somalis. And when he was coming in, there were 3 Somali men in the stairway. And when he was walking by these Somali men, he mentioned it passingly that it stinks in the stairway. And when he had passed by these men shouted after him that it's you who stinks. And these Somalis had claimed to the police that this Finnish man had called them niggers. And this is what the Finnish man says about that. I don't remember calling anyone niggers. They were Somalis, not niggers. And calling them niggers would be an insult against niggers. I can tell niggers and Somalis apart. And he says that he denies any guilt in defamation, and that he hasn't offended them personally, and that saying about the smell was just a general statement, not anything targeted towards the Somalis. And actually this case has gone to court, and this like these Somalis, they actually called the police saying that these Finnish neighbors had been mean to them. And they claimed these Finnish neighbors had all the time harassed them, called them racist names, and even acted in a very threatening way. And this man was prosecuted for saying racist things, but the really weird thing was that his wife was also prosecuted, and she didn't even say anything. She had simply walked past these Somalis and held her nose like this. So that was her offense, her racist offense against the Somalis. And of course the Somalis had lied a bit in the court. They had accused this guy of racist behavior on some specific day, but it turned out that the guy could prove that he hadn't even been there on that day. He had been working in a completely different place. So the Somalis were caught on perjury, and this guy is considering suing them for that. So this is pretty interesting, and I think this says a lot about the Finnish culture, because if I or anyone else from the native population called the police saying, okay, my neighbor is looking at me in a nasty way and he's saying pretty mean things at me, like would they really come if I called 911 and said that? They would call me, tell me to go to sleep and get sober. Like, they wouldn't even take that seriously. But when the Somalis call and say, okay, we have a mean neighbor who is holding, and she's holding her nose and he's saying racist things at us, and police immediately come.
And the guy was taken from his home to the police station.
Yeah, and imagine that this guy gets arrested for that, for arguing with his neighbors. And I can't say anything about the conviction yet, because the sentence only comes in tomorrow. But when we get the sentence, we should get the paperwork at some point during the day. I will make an update video on that, on how the guy and his wife ended up. And the odds are the woman who held her nose will be freed from all charges, because how can you prove something like that is a crime? It's absolutely ridiculous. But the guy, most likely, her husband, will get some fines or something. But apparently they have the means, so even the fines aren't a problem for them. But I'll make an update on that tomorrow. And I just have to say, it's always the Somalis. Like when there are these stupid brawls, when the local population has a problem with these immigrants, it always tends to be Somalis. Of course, it's at times Iraqis or Afghanis, but most often it's Somalis. And you can see in my earlier videos, there's this Somali GTA and the commentary on the Somali Grand Theft Auto. And in that, it's the Somali city councilman who tries to run over some nationalist demonstrators and then starts shouting at them and making a huge fuss about it and not taking any responsibility for his own behavior. So the Somalis, they have this weird habit. And a friend of mine earlier today said that in front of his own apartment building in Tampere, some Somalis had crashed a roadblock. And when this guy had approached the Somalis and asked them what was going on, the Somalis said that they really didn't know to expect that roadblock in there. And they said that, oh, yeah, we came over here pretty slowly. And the guy said, oh, you should be careful because there are children and elderly people who walk around this neighborhood at night. And they said, oh, yeah, we were careful. Yeah, we drove really slow, but we didn't see this coming. And the guy said, oh, no, I saw you. That you were driving pretty fast, that you shouldn't have floored it. And then these guys go, okay, you saw it? Okay, our fault. Like, what's wrong with these people?
Yeah, imagine you have new neighbors, and the first day you end up to the police, and now he might have to pay over 1,000 euros because of smelly neighbors. So it's I don't know, it's not working.
And the worst thing is, of course, the fines aren't anything like that. It's absolutely nothing if you get fines for hate speech and discrimination. But the worst thing is that he might have to pay some reparations for these people. And wouldn't you just hate to have to pay these kinds of fucking liars? Like, that would be absolutely disgusting. So I think that's the real problem, that these guys most likely will get some damages for lying about this Finnish guy being a terrible racist and saying they smell and saying that they're niggers and they're really Somalis.
Yeah, and in court he explained why he knows that Somalis are not niggers. Is that he was training a man from Ghana, and he had some time ago, and he had mistaken this guy for a Somali, and the guy from Ghana was not pleased about this, and he told him, you can call me a nigger, but do not call me a Somali. So that was what he said, because in court he was asked about his why he had said such a thing to the police. And
I think it's pretty funny that we over here in Finland, we clearly don't get the best of immigrants, because when I get feedback from African people, Africans always say it's the Somalis who are by far the worst. And Somalis are the people who make up most of African immigrants over here in Finland. And when I get feedback from, say, North Africans or Middle Eastern people, they always say, oh, fucking Iraqis, those Iraqis are fucking barbarians, and everybody, even in the Middle East, hates them. And it's, of course, the Iraqis who make the majority of Middle Eastern immigrants over here in Finland. So we get the most hated people over there, even in their own areas.
Yeah, and what, so what, even if he had called them niggers, so what, they are black, so what's the big deal in that?
Yeah, and imagine if these Somalis had called these people like crackers or something like that. Would there be charges? Of course not.
No. And yeah, and it's true. The biggest immigrant groups are from Afghanistan, Somalia, and Iraq, and they are not the best people on the earth.
Yeah, yes, one guy in the comment section pointing out that the translation for negeri, the word the Finnish guy used, is not nigger. And of course, this is that if you look at the history of the word negeri in Finnish, it has not been pejorative, like it's not an offensive word in its original meaning. When people used it in the 50s or 1960s, it wasn't an offensive word. Like it wasn't meant to be any way demeaning. It was simply a word for black people. So it was a word for basically Negro. But now the meaning of the word has changed with the political correctness, and people take it as a pejorative. So they take it as a nigger, even though it in its original meaning was more like Negro. And
yeah,
maybe necro would be something that its in original meaning has always been pejorative. But negeri used to be a normal word for black people, but now it's considered very offensive, like a synonym for nigger. And let's see if there's something in the comment section before we move on to the multiculturalist independence celebration. Yes, there's a lot of talk about the word nigger, and now in the comment section of whether it's a correct translation for it, but you'll get the point. Because, of course, the word negeri, it hasn't always been offensive, but what we are talking about is how the word is perceived now as we speak, not the way it was perceived in the 1950s or in the 19th century, but now. And since it's now considered as a synonym for nigger, then that's the way I try to translate it. And you could check out if there's any updates. Keep an eye out for them. I think Breitbart had some sort of timeline going on. And of course, you can read the French media too. But since there's nothing new in the comment section, maybe, and okay, somebody asked, what is the name of the professor? And he was Jerzy Sarnecki. And maybe I should type that into the comment section. Oh. So that's him. And I think there was a wonderful example of multiculturalism taking over in Finland, because as all people who are in the scene know that there's this march through the institutions in cultural Marxism. And it means that these cultural Marxists, they take over institutions one by one, like the court system, the educational system, the government offices. And Finland is turning 100 years old next year in 2017. And there's this big celebration coming out. So there are lots of government-funded projects about celebrating the 100-year history of independent Finland. And there's this project called Suomi 100, aka a Finland 100 that has given out some government funds or public funds for different projects that are supposed to have something to do with the independent Finland, but for some reason they end up being much more about multiculturalism. And first of all, these are the projects that didn't get any government funding. The next 100 years of democracy, Finland 100 years celebration gala, Finland 100 years of independence gala, Finnish film festival, Finnish roots, and 100 musical years of Finland. These didn't get government funding, but these did get. The program bus in Africa got 30,000 euros. Startup refugees got 150,000 euros. And those people who follow my channel most likely have seen the video Migrants Reinvent the Bark Boat. And it's that project. Startup refugees, they are the people who came up with the ridiculous bark boat. Like, that's what they got to show for all those fucking talented asylum seekers, a bark boat. Like, look at how talented people we got. They can make bark boats.
They needed a mentor to do those, and we did some fact checking by calling the companies that were
partnered with this project
or identified themselves as being partners, but yeah, it's bullshit.
It's a complete scam. Like the secretary of the Interior Ministry, they were mentioned as a partner for this project, Startup Refugees. We called them and asked, okay, what have you done for this project? And this guy from the Interior Ministry said, okay, we have been along in the spirit, like we have given our support for this group in spirit. So they have basically given a thumbs up for this Startup Refugees, and they are mentioned as a partner for that. And there was this one chain called From Waste to Taste, and it's this EU-funded project in which waste food is turned into restaurant food. So they have a chain of restaurants, and they employ people like disabled people, immigrants, people like that in their restaurants. So they are also basically a charity. And we called them and asked, okay, how many people have you employed through this Startup Refugees that claims to employ people? And it turns out that this From Waste to Taste had jobs for asylum seekers, like they had jobs waiting for them, but the Startup Refugees had never contacted them. Like they had some initial discussions about employment, but then these Startup Refugees people never called them back, even though these people had already jobs for asylum seekers. Only thing they had to do is to call, and there would have been jobs, but they never called. So that's how good these people are at employing asylum seekers. They are ready-made jobs, and they don't even get those for them. And let's not get into the bark boat business anymore. Everyone can look at the bark boat video on my channel and make up their minds based on that about how Startup Refugees is as a project. And other projects were redefining Finnishness, or being Finnish. And this was pretty funny because this of course means that, okay, we must now count Somalis and Iraqis and all sorts of Muslims and Rakhets and stuff, like people like that, as Finnish because they have moved into this country. Like they have managed to get across the border, so now they are just as Finnish as we are. And then this organization called Suomen Sisu, which is a nationalist organization, they made a very simple tweet later on. And that tweet only said, we define what Finnish is. And of course the multiculturalists, they were immediately outraged. They didn't even know what the description these nationalists were meaning to give was, but they were already outraged. And they say, oh no, you Nazis, you aren't defining anything. And it's funny that when this nationalist organization says that they are going to define what Finnish means, they get attacked. But when these multiculturalists say that they redefine Finnish, so that there must be some existing definition of Finnish, but these multiculturalists are redefining it, they are making new definition, they get no shit for it. And then other projects, female leaders in front, or how would you say, 24,500 euros. And a lot of these projects were about equality, but none of them were about any real equality. Like all projects that were about gender equality were about women. And all projects that were about racial or religious equality were about colored people or Muslims. So there was no place for any equality work for males, and there was no place in the multicultural society for white people. And other projects, this Finland 100 years project is running, are 100 deeds for equality. Like, how meaningful does that sound like to you? Like, how useful will you think that will be to our society? Like 100 deeds for equality.
How does anything have to do with the independence of Finland?
Arabian Night, that's another project. Arabian Night. Does it sound threatening at all? Maybe it's like the...
Why are we funding this bullshit?
Is it like the New Year's Eve in Germany or something? In Cologne. And religious and ethnic future of Europe, that of course is one of these projects. And I don't think this is about any concern for European religions or the European ethnicity. It's most likely about saying, okay, we are now all brown and we are now all this magical blend of Muslim and atheists, and this will mean our countries will be just paradise from now on. And other projects, Touko Laaksonen, the man behind Tom of Finland, then Tom of Finland movie and Tom of Finland musical. And this Tom of Finland, it's a huge deal over here in Finland. And religious people have naturally a bit of a problem with that, because if you don't know what Tom of Finland is or this Touko Laaksonen, this Touko Laaksonen is an artist who used this name, Tom of Finland, and he has made a lot of this homoerotic artwork that's pretty graphic, and I'll show you some of it. And for some reason, when it's about gay people, when it's about gay porn, it's somehow suitable for children. And Finnish people have actually no problem with all this being shown to children. And of course, if it were heterosexual couples, they would most likely have some problem with it. They would say that it's not completely healthy to show these images to children. But these so-called artwork by the Tom of Finland, they have been made into some bed sheets in Finland, also into postage stamps. Like if you go to a post office, like I went to one in E, I saw these, they were just there in plain sight, like they weren't even under the counter or anything, even though there was plain nudity in the postage stamps.
There's even coffee.
Tom of Finland coffee. And there are plays running in theaters.
So what does this have to do with independence? I have no idea.
Like, and of course, I am for gay rights, yes, but this is just degenerate, and it's absolutely ridiculous to claim that this has anything to do with Finnish independence. Like, why are we celebrating this? This is absolutely obscene. And yes, maybe there are some grown-ups who like this kind of artwork. Maybe there are people who want to buy this shit. But wait a minute, I'll show you the postage stamps. Okay, so here they are. This is one of the Tom of Finland stamps. And this is pretty decent, pretty moderate. And this already is a bit more controversial. And I think this one is pretty bad. Like, I really wouldn't want this on some Christmas card. I wouldn't know how to feel about that. So these are the stamps. And this is absolutely degenerate, but because there is this LGBT agenda, because we have this gender identity ideology, then of course this kind of stuff is promoted and hailed. Like, if this artist had painted heterosexual couples or anything else but gays, he wouldn't be anywhere close to this famous, and he wouldn't be admired in this way. It's only because it's gay people and it fits the LGBT agenda. And that agenda isn't even mostly run by gay people. It's straight social justice warriors, these far leftists, who have this agenda. And there are a lot of gay people who don't want anything to do with this, right? So they're basically riding on gay people to get this degenerate shit to become normalized. So that's what the Tom of Finland stuff is about. And other projects they had were Finland of many faiths and worldviews. So that, of course, is the basic multicultural bullshit about, okay, now we have all these different races over here, and we have all these different religions over here, and this is a wonderful thing, and there might be some small altercation, some friction in the beginning, maybe, but it'll all work out and it'll be wonderful. Then moving forward together through understanding. And I checked out what this project was, and it was about interfaith cooperation. So it's a Europe-wide project, and it claims that these leaders of different religious sects are cooperating in this project and finding a ways to create this wonderful multicultural society. And of course, the Berlin situation pretty much shows how that's going. Like, how well are Muslims integrating into our society, and how well are they liking our pluralist values. Like, they aren't really interested in this shit.
Well, our politicians are insane by funding this crap. How are we supposed to understand each other if we don't even speak the same language in this country? Or it's like the Soviet Union, where the politicians were talking about something, but the reality was something completely different, and it's exactly the same. Nobody understands this. What does this have to do with the independence? Any of these so-called projects, which are only to give money to one's friends.
Yeah, because in the board that made the decisions about these government funds was this rap artist who I think I have mentioned on one earlier video, called Paleface. And Paleface is a steadfast multiculturalist, and these people running these startup refugees, Riku Rantala, who you could see on that video of mine about Backboat, and his friend Tunna Milonov, they are friends of this Paleface, and he was making the decision about them getting 150 grand of government money, or taxpayer money. And this Paleface is a bit of a funny case on his own, because when there was this Nazi assault I have mentioned many times in Helsinki, he made this music video called "We Will Not Fear." And on that video, there was this Muslim guy called, what was his name? Some
Montathar was the name.
Yeah, and he was shown on the background in the group dancing, and later on that same Muslim guy stabbed a Finnish guy, an elderly man, in front of a church, and he was dancing in the "We Will Not Fear" anti-Nazi video. So clearly those people had something to fear, like that guy, that Muslim guy in there.
Paleface in this picture is the guy behind with his both hands up. Rantala is the guy with the green book, and next to him the woman or something with the red bag is the ex-president of Finland.
Yes, imagine, like, this is how crazy it is. And this woman on the very far right, she is the actual now chairman of the Finnish left-wing party. Like, she's there giving the finger to the camera, and that sort of person is the leader of the left-wing party. Yeah, and here's the clip or a screen cap of the music video, and there's the former leader of the left-wing party who preceded that woman in that previous picture, Paavo Arhimäki. Here's Paleface, the rap artist, and on the left of him there's the killer. So this guy, I don't now remember his full name, but he stabbed an elderly guy in Helsinki. And it's so funny that something like this would happen. And when the news broke out about the guy or the killer being on this music video, people started asking questions on this Paleface's Facebook wall. And at first, for days, he removed all those messages. He simply deleted all the messages that asked about okay, what about the killer on your music video? Do you have anything to say about that? And he just deleted them. Then in the end, it turned so big, the story was so huge that he had to say something about it. And he gave some generic comment that, okay, all violence is bad and this is a big tragedy and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really know the guy and nobody really knew him. And he just showed up there and he tried to take as much distance to this guy as possible and give some sort of a generic condemnation of violence without going too specific and without admitting any fault in his ideology. Like he was over there saying that Nazis are the people who are the dangerous ones and that we will not fear, we dare to oppose you Nazis. And actually the dangerous one was next to him all the time, literally next to him. So these are the kinds of people who decide about the government funds. And the guy on the right of him, the black guy over here, this is Sultan Said Ahmed. And he has actually blocked me on Facebook during our very first encounter over there. He was criticizing the burqa ban in France. And I was saying, okay, what about Somalia? Like, you are from Somalia, and don't you have anything to say about women killed over there for not wearing veils? Like, isn't that a bigger problem that in Somalia you can get actually shot or stoned or stabbed if you don't have a veil than France banning burqas? Like, isn't that a bigger problem? And he just blocked me. He had no comment for that.
Yeah, it's weird that they bitch about everything that happens here, and they want to transform our countries to be like theirs. But why? They have escaped those countries. Why do they want to turn ours like their countries? I have asked these questions many times, but I failed to get an answer to these questions.
Exactly, and there's no way to please these people. Like we were talking about in our Finnish podcast. In Sweden, they've done everything to please these people. Like where these people come from, they aren't happy over there, so they leave and come here. And then when they are placed among the general population over here, they start committing crimes and they are a menace to the native population. And that doesn't work out. Then when you place them only amongst each other, so that there's no native population in close proximity, they are still a menace because they start rioting. They turn their neighborhoods into complete shitholes. Then these Swedish people try to create in the Rinkeby district in Stockholm, which is an immigrant neighborhood. They tried to create this bazaar area in there that was supposed to be this sort of ethnic market. And of course it didn't work out because the area is simply so dangerous that nobody wants to start a business over there. These people, they don't want to work because they already get these huge government benefits for doing absolutely nothing. So why the hell would they start selling something on the marketplace? And it fell flat. Like now the street is basically empty. There are like a couple of barbershops over there. There used to be some sort of a cell phone company over there, but it left too because it got robbed so many times. And it didn't work out.
Yeah,
so what means do we have left? Like these people, they aren't happy there. They aren't happy and productive amongst us. They aren't happy and productive amongst themselves. So what's the next thing?
And even if there's a few businesses that are created, it's very low value. It doesn't employ many people, and they are breeding. They have tens of kids in each family. So it's and the schools in Sweden and in Finland are becoming, or in Sweden, in those, at least in those areas, they are the education or the teaching is not existent because it's impossible to teach them. The rate of students or people in the school who actually do not drop out is very low. So these people they are used to make trouble in the school. So when they get out of school, they stay on the street, making the same trouble. And the police doesn't do anything. If there's a riot, they just watch and film it. Maybe fine one or two guys, but nothing happens. So there's no punishment. There's no jail. There's nothing. You have a rapist. It's basically illegal to say who the guy is.
Yeah, these rapists, they get something like suspended sentences, which is basically nothing. Like that's less than a punishment than a fine would be because.
And if it happens in Sweden, it's their problem. They can do whatever they want. But the problem is that we are doing the same stuff here, but a bit later. We are 20 years or 25 years. I mean, Sweden is 25 years ahead of us. They opened their borders in 75, whereas Finland opened its borders in 1990. And of course, there's not so. If Sweden takes 160,000, we take 32,000. It's a lot less, but still, it's
more than we can take.
Yeah, and we are seeing this it's like a slow-mo movie that we are watching. Well, like Enoch Powell said in 1968, it's like watching a nation heaping up its own funeral pyre, and that's what is happening currently here.
And as our friend said in the Finnish podcast we have, it's mostly our fault because we teach these people all the wrong things. Like when these people come over here, of course they don't know anything about our way of life. So, like imagine you would go on a refugee camp in Syria, and you would be a refugee living there. You would know nothing about how Syrians live. You would know nothing about how their bureaucracy works, how their culture is. So of course you would have to learn it from the locals. And over here, the locals, they teach all the wrong things to these people. Like when these people come over here, they get everything they want. And if they don't get everything they want, they start protesting, they start striking, they start rioting, and then these local people, they give in to these people, and they make all their wishes come true. And then these refugees or asylum seekers, they start to believe that it'll work always, that if you just demand the Swedish or Finnish people, then they will give you everything for free. And it's very likely that most of these people, that they don't even understand that not everything is free over here. Because in Sweden, these asylum seekers were just protesting for being placed into these new apartments. They were just these module apartments that were basically a temporary residence for them until they can find something permanent for them. But they were basically like normal studio apartments with a little kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, things like that. And these asylum seekers were protesting for not having TVs in their apartments and not having Wi-Fi in them. And of course, the Swedish people, they will give in to them. Of course they will, they always do. And they will get their TVs, they will get their Wi-Fi. And it's very likely that these asylum seekers, they believe that we get all that for free too. That they believe that TVs and Wi-Fi just come with apartments over here. Because that's what we have taught them. Like, if we treated them equally, if we treated them the way we treat our own people, we would just say, okay, go to work, get a job, pay for your fucking TV and pay for your fucking Wi-Fi, then you will get them. That's what we would say to our own people if they were bitching about stuff like that. Like, would anyone take it from Finnish unemployed people to protest for not having free Wi-Fi from the government? No. They would say, go get a fucking job, you bum, and pay for your fucking Wi-Fi. And why are they, like, they being these grown migrants, giving them everything they want for free? Of course they will demand more and more and more because they are taught into that. Like, we just teach them absolutely wrong things about our culture. So of course they start assuming everything is free over here, and of course they start demanding more and more free stuff and more privileges, and they have no respect for our rule of law because all rules are bent for them all the time. So the rules mean nothing for them because they can see that we are letting them bend the rules and we bend the rules for them.
The problem is the system, and by the system I mean the people who are in charge. And the thing is that the guys who are in charge, they let this happen, and those that are against, they are fired, and those who do not work, they are told that you are not working, so you have no right to speak against this. And that it's the system. So people need to understand that you have to vote for candidates that are against this and not. But the main problem is that such candidates are very rare, and our political system is such that it's the big parties that usually win, and in those, even if there are a few good candidates, they are shut down, or they are fired also. So it's funny that they claim that we have the freedom of speech and we have we have democracy, but in reality it's more like fascism. As long as the state has this mission to create a multicultural environment or state or whatever, people who speak against it are shut down. Of course, we can speak here freely, but what is the influence? The next election is in April in Finland. It's the municipal election, and I'm a candidate. And I need to get 1,000 votes to pass, to become a councilman. And even if I get there, what are my chances there? There's in our city there are 67 councilmen. So and out of these, currently there's one or two that are so-called Islamophobic, so they're normal people. But it's really hard to change the system. But still, I keep on trying.
And it's so obvious that the goal of the politicians isn't to help any starving refugees or suffering people. It's to build a multicultural society. That's the primary goal. Because when you think about helping, say, Syrian refugees, the best way to help them would be to help them near their home location. With the same money you use to pay for one migrant over here in Finland for 1 year, you could pay for the living of 20 refugees for 1 year in Syria or in some neighboring country. So that would be the humane thing to do. Why pay for one Iraqi guy to loiter in some reception center when you can actually help 20 real Syrians with that money? That would be the humane and the effective thing to do. Why help one person when you can help 20? But when you take this up with the multiculturalists, they immediately say no. They are absolutely dead set against helping these people near their own home areas, because that doesn't help their multiculturalist plan. That doesn't help them bring these colored people in to create the multicultural society. So it's absolutely obvious that it's nothing about helping people. It's nothing about helping starving little children in Syria. It's only about getting their goal of this ethnic vibes, like one commenter say, and these multicultural vibrations. These refugees, they are simply a tool for them. They don't even see them as people. They see them as just building blocks for this multicultural society. It's the primary goal.
Out of all the asylum seekers in Finland, 4% are from Syria. So what is this Syria bullshit? And with, as Tina said, with the billions that we use for this shit in Finland, we could build a new Aleppo away from the bombings, if there's any, because it's not clear what is happening there. Because since our media is so professional, they cannot even report from a thing that happens in Finland objectively. So why should we believe what they are saying abroad?
And one commenter says that and that these people think it's all for free. And it turns out that a lot of these asylum seekers in Finland, for some reason, they have this idea that UN pays for everything. That they have even said to Finnish people who have criticized this asylum system that, no, why are you complaining? It's the UN refugee system that pays for everything. No, it's not. It's the Finnish taxpayers. Like, where do they get this idea? And they seem to sincerely believe in that, so somebody has lied to them.
Yeah, we have lots of Finnish people who also are, I don't know if they are so stupid or are they lying on purpose, but something. Some claim that we have this refugee quota, which means that we are taking 750 every year of asylum seekers. But problem is that many people, they don't follow the what's happening, and they don't follow, or they don't understand the stuff. So, or they don't pay enough attention. So they are easily misinformed, and then they might say to you that, yes, but at work there's one refugee and he's very nice, so we need to open the borders. So to convince people, it's very hard, even if you have the correct arguments, it's difficult. But also one problem is that some people are so pissed off that they are exaggerating, or they are expressing themselves in a too harsh a way, and that's not good for our cause.
Yes, these anti-racists, they will always find some lunatics who, for example, threaten violence against left-wing politicians or something, or say some violent fantasies about the migrants, and they will pick those up and they will milk them for all they get, and they will try to use those to paint us all as violent racists. So these people who are for our cause, they really should think twice before they post anything. I understand that they are angry, I understand that they are frustrated, but we have to be constructive and think about what is good for this cause, what is productive, what brings people on our side and takes them away from the leftist side.
Yes, there's on Twitter there's some information that the truck driver might be from Pakistan, but it's not. I'll share the Twitter feed here. It's easier.
What are they saying about?
No, there's this newspaper, Focus, which is a German newspaper.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Let's see, what's that site?
It's it was 2 minutes ago.
And what are they talking about, Chechenians?
No, I don't know, the guy who tweeted it was
because Chechenians, of course, commit a lot of Islamist attacks, but they mostly commit those against the Russians. Like, they don't that often commit those in Europe. And I think there's only been one of these Caucasian attacks in Western countries, and that was the Boston Marathon bombing, which was by these Caucasian refugees.
So this is the guy could be from Pakistan. And yeah, and in the URL it's written Chechnya. So the guy is asking, is it which is it?
Is it Pakistani or Chechnya? So maybe they have at first said it's a Chechenian, but later they corrected the title, but the URL stayed.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Because the same URL sticks if you don't change it. So maybe there has been some sort of correction later on. Because as I noticed, the Finnish media, when they had made these stories about them, they had simply edited the older stories with the updates. They hadn't made new stories, so the same URL was there all the time. So maybe the Chechnya thing is some outdated information. And you speak this, whatever Greek language this is, better than me. So what are they saying?
And this newspaper, Die Welt, says that the guy could be from Pakistan.
What are they basing that on?
Let's see. So the truck had no lights on when the truck of peace failed to respect the regulations. And the guy who was found dead, was Polish.
Yeah, so maybe he had been dead all the time. What if he didn't die in the crash? Maybe he had been killed before when the truck was hijacked.
At 16 past midnight, they said it could be from Chechnya, but at 30 minutes later they said no, he's not from Chechnya but from Pakistan. And it's the Polish guy probably was shot.
Yeah, so most likely it was a hijacking, because why would he shoot his own partner if he had been a partner in the crime, the driver of the truck?
This is unconfirmed information, but yeah,
it feels credible when you consider the rest of what we know for sure, that the truck was registered in Poland, and the driver of the owner of the truck knew that the driver was his cousin, and the owner suspected his cousin and the truck were hijacked.
But the police says that they confirmed that the killed guy was Polish. So maybe
he was a hostage, most likely. Of course, it might be that he might have been a partner in crime, but why would the driver shoot him then?
Yeah.
So I guess the truck was hijacked, and it very well might be that the guy in the cabin, this Polish guy who was originally the driver of the car, that maybe he had been dead all along, that he wasn't even killed at the scene. Maybe he was killed at noon, because his cousin said that he lost contact with this Polish driver at noon.
And the guy is that he's a small, or how would you translate this? He's not a terrorist, but he's a small criminal. He's already known by the police.
But all of them start with something like the.
So he might be born in Germany, and yeah.
Yeah, and this homegrown terrorists, these are a pretty good example of this failed integration, because these multiculturalists, they claim that if we just integrate these people, the problems will go away. And they always claim that, okay, these people become terrorists because there's so much suffering in their home countries, they might turn bitter against the Western people, or that if they come over here, they have to face racism, and that's what makes them bitter. And they are poor, and they are misfit from the society, and things like that. When it's actually statistically true that most terrorists are from rich families. They aren't some poor little refugees. They are people who are born here into immigrant families, and they are wealthy and well educated. And the most common profession for an Islamic terrorist is an engineer. So they aren't some poor little unemployed and misfit little creatures, but
not
successful people.
Not all Pakistanis drive trucks.
Not all. Definitely not all. And someone asks, why don't you two go into politics? Like,
well, I am. I have been a candidate since 2012.
And I have actually been asked to participate in the municipal election that comes next spring, but it's a bit difficult because I'm in the middle of changing cities as we speak, so I don't know which city I will be having my address in when the election starts. And then there is the issue of my studies, which will take a lot of time because I will start my finals at springtime, so it'll be a lot of work. So most likely I will just be an assistant to Younes, who is the big candidate in the house. Like, you have a better shot at getting through anyway, so maybe I'll try next time.
The political system is such that it's better to have two candidates than one, because some people will prefer to vote for you, and anyways, if we are in the same party, the votes are counted, are added up. So if I'm alone and let's say I get 100 votes and you get 20, if we are separate, it's 100 and it's 20, but if we are together, it's 120.
Well, of course, it's that too, but I have to think about it. And yes, it's of course that we have a bit different voters, even though we are largely active on the same issues, because our work is a bit different. Like, I have some readers who might prefer me because I make maybe a bit more, how would I say it? Maybe a bit more moderate content about immigration and stuff like that, and people who like the more entertaining and outspoken content often then go for Younes. And it's funny that people always think that you're the outrageous one, that you're the you're the loose cannon, when in fact you're the one who's always telling me, oh, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that. And here's a question that, can you recommend someone who I could vote with the similar views on Tiina and Younes, who is in Turku? And this is something we thought about, that during the last election, these immigration critical people had these lists about good candidates in different districts. And we could create something like that too, like collect all the names of the good candidates, people we can trust, and people who we know who are holding up the right values. And
yeah, the problem is that the other lists were made for the parliament elections, and now it's the municipal elections, and there are over 300 cities in Finland, but we could make a list, or we will definitely make a list. But we will
need a lot of help from people from different cities.
No, but at least we will concentrate on the big cities.
And if we get help, like if people from different cities contact us and explain these things about their own hometowns, then of course we can make the list more complete like that. But on our own, we might get the big cities done. So that's a project we might start on the spring, when the candidate lists are made sure that we know who's running where.
In Helsinki, there's Jussi Halla-aho, which I would recommend. He's currently a member of the European Parliament, but he's running in Helsinki.
And let's see if there's anything else about that guy being Pakistani or something. So about the shooting of the Russian ambassador, they say that Turkish police has made some arrests. They have arrested his parents, his sister, and his roommate. The guy was called Mevlut Mert Altindas, and he was 22 years old. And he was a member of Ankara's riot squad, according to local media. This is by Daily Mail. And this really was a pretty bizarre scene, I think. Like, there was something about this that almost felt like it was staged, like it was acted or something. It was so weird. But I guess we'll find out later on. But who knows, maybe this was all concocted, like maybe it's meant as a provocation, like maybe it was even Russians themselves, who knows?
I don't know,
But it was just so weird that it happened to happen on a live stream and there was just perfect angles for everything, and with the guy doing all the...
It was an art exhibition, I think, or something like that. And of course it could be, but I think things just happen.
And here someone asks that, Arto asks that, has Russia blamed Turkey for this case? And no, they haven't, at least what I have heard of, directly accused Turkey, but Putin said that he believes that this is an organized event and that the order came from some higher level, and that he's launching an investigation to find out where the order came from. So it gives the feeling that Putin believes that there's some high-level Turkish involvement in this. What do you think? What else could he mean?
No, it's just that who asked this guy to do what he did?
Yeah, but he clearly thought that it was a high-level thing. Like, and if you talk about a bodyguard of an ambassador turning against this ambassador, then if it isn't really about the single guy getting radicalized and running amok, then it must be some pretty high-level conspiracy. But let's just wait for more information before we get into all that.
I'm not. Since he said that do not forget about Aleppo, maybe he has some Syrian friends and he wanted to do something about that. But yeah, anything is possible.
Sure.
And he was only 22, so it's pretty young.
Well, who knows? And I have to say I'm very interested to hear more about this. I'm waiting for the results of that Russian investigation, because this really is a volatile situation that it might turn ugly. If the Russians start to believe that there was some high-level Turkish involvement, then it really might turn into a World War III, with NATO being or Turkey being a NATO country, and the other NATO countries being responsible for Turkey's safety if Turkey claims that it's under attack. And Turkey has caused this diplomatic crisis before. It has been a real pain in other NATO countries, as is. So I wouldn't wonder or be at all surprised if this turned pretty ugly. And of course, when Turkey joined NATO, it was a very secular country. And for some reason, these other countries who accepted its membership application, they didn't see it coming that at some point Turkey will turn Islamic, as all Muslim countries do. They have these secular periods at times, like say Algeria did, like Morocco did, like Jordan is having right now, like Lebanon had at one point, but they will all turn Islamic at some point. The pendulum will swing. And now NATO is stuck with an Islamic country as their member, with a hardline Islamist as its president. So what are they supposed to do? I guess NATO is pretty nervous about this too. And they asked, do I think Erdogan did this? No, I'd say Erdogan isn't that crazy. But who knows? When he ordered the shooting down of the Russian plane, that was a situation in which, if someone had asked me, do you think Erdogan would order the shooting down of Russian aircraft, I would have said no. I would have said no, he isn't that crazy. But he was that crazy. So who knows, maybe. Clearly, he is willing to shoot his own country in the leg if he just gets that sort of whim. Like, he doesn't think things through, and he's willing to take huge risks and huge damages to get these whims done. Like the shooting down of that aircraft. Turkey benefited absolutely nothing from it. They made huge financial losses because they lost all the Russian tourists. They lost a lot of Russian trade. They benefited absolutely nothing, and their diplomatic relations to many countries worsened. But still, Erdogan went with it. He decided to do it. So here, clearly, he has a very bad judgment, and he isn't a responsible leader. So I wouldn't put anything past him. I'm not saying he did it, but I'm saying he's crazy enough maybe to do it. Yeah, I would say so, now that I start to think about the aircraft stuff. What do you think?
I have no idea. I pray for Turkey or hashtag or something. But there's people asking, will UK or Sweden be next? I think it's related to the Berlin car accident. Somebody says Sweden, and in fact, in Stockholm there was a suicide bombing during the Christmas period 2 years ago, which sort of failed because the only person who died was the suicide bomber himself, who was not born, but he lived in Luton in the UK, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He came on in Stockholm to blow up, but he failed.
In Sweden, there have been also these other smaller events that happen all the time, like the IKEA stuff, the technical failure.
Yeah, the IKEA in a city called Västerås, which is not so far from Stockholm. It was closed with a sign, "We are closed because of a technical failure." And the technical failure was that an asylum seeker who had his application turned down, he stabbed 2 Swedes who died. And that's also very important to say that not only terrorism is a problem caused by immigration, but also this big rise in crime all the rapes, the robberies, the bullshit that is happening everywhere, the changing of society, of the streets, of if you look at Facebook's videos where there's Muslims marching in a British city, there's thousands of them making noise. They are not British cities anymore, and that's why are we letting this happen? We are transforming our own countries into those. Okay, the multiculturalist will say that, okay, what's wrong with people marching peacefully? What's wrong with that? But it is wrong. I don't accept it. So why should I have a fucking scientific report on why is this bad? I just say I don't accept this, and you have to accept my opinion on this.
And when you think about all the other crime, like the car burnings in Malmö, the rape crisis, and these homicides like this Elin Krantz woman and this asylum seeker housing center worker that was stabbed this year. What was her name? The blonde woman who was some sort of an immigrant herself.
She was from Lebanon, but I don't remember the name. And but anyways, the European countries are changing into the Middle East, but the Middle East is not changing into a Western country. So in the end, what is happening? You also have a phenomenon that, for example, Dutch people are moving to Sweden or to up north because they are escaping. It's like white flight, but from a country to another, because they just don't want this. They want to live peacefully, but if your neighborhood or if your whole city or if your whole country turns into an ethnic vibration theme park, there are also Germans that are moving to Hungary. I have seen a German documentary, which could be interesting to subtitle in Finnish. I like subtitling documentaries, even if it's not of big use, because not enough people are watching them, and even if they watch them, they don't care.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely pathetic that when you look at the situation in Europe, that we are in a real crisis, that our future is at stake. And then you look at what people are interested in. And if you have a channel that is about putting different everyday objects into a blender, then it'll have millions and millions of views and subscribers. Then if you have a channel with some political content about important issues, and it doesn't even matter what sort of political content it is, whether it's left-wing or right-wing, any sort of important political matters. When they are talked about, nobody cares. Like, it's about thousands of views, not about millions.
Arto says that he likes the subtitling that I do, but also subtitling, it's illegal in Finland.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about these videos that are in a language that most people over here don't understand, like Dutch or something, or French.
Yeah, my next project is to subtitle Geer Wilders' speech at the court on November 23rd. It's just a a long speech, 26 minutes. It takes a long time to do.
And let's see if we have anything new over here. The Finnish media is pretty useless when it comes to getting the latest news. They mostly copy these foreign news from other news sites, so it means that if you're trying to get something that has come out.
Look at this tweet. Ich bin ein Berliner.
Oh my god. Like the sappy, faux empathetic stuff, it's already running wild.
No, you're not. Your name is Daniela Phillips. You're not from Berlin. Fuck you.
I would just love to see what they are basing that rumor about. Yeah, Breitbart is talking about Pakistani suspect. Let's see what they say about him. So, at first, German paper Die Welt claims that the man arrested by police is of Chechen origin. The National Criminal Police say that the dead passenger may have either died during the incident or may have been shot beforehand. And later on, 10 minutes later, they say that Die Welt has made a correction and now believes that the man arrested was not of Chechen origin but is Pakistani. So they had corrected the headline but not the URL, so that's why the contradiction was there. And still they don't say why they believe he was Pakistani. But
well, I guess it's that the journalist talked to some police officers there, and some said off the record that yeah, he's a Paki, but officially it's not confirmed. And still the driver was running away, and they just arrested some suspicious guy that was in the area.
Yes, and they say that the Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the Berlin attack, according to an analysis of several online jihadist networks by an anti-ISIS Iraqi Popular Mobilization Force. However, some other analysts say the Iraqi group is premature with that declaration, and a formal claim of responsibility should be awaited from traditional ISIS communication outlets.
The claim was first in the Washington Times, and now it's the New York Post. But they do not link to the. Okay, there's several jihadist Twitter accounts that are claiming responsibility, but
that doesn't mean much.
Yes, it's not sure if anyone.
If it's just people on Twitter, like anyone could make those ones. So
yeah.
But this does have the sense of an ISIS attack, but it also could be a lone wolf, someone who just admires ISIS and tries to imitate earlier attacks. So it might be anyway, but I think it's pretty clear that most likely this is an Islamic terrorist attack. Like, I don't think anyone suspected that at any point.
Yeah, and the Pakistani that is in custody is not a known terrorist, but he's a small criminal, or a petty criminal, maybe the right term. But
and of course, there's something else going on tonight too. And this is in USA, and with this terrorist attack, we have forgotten this completely. And this is the day the Electoral College is voting for presidency. And of course, these left-wing celebrities, actors like Martin Sheen, have made this video in which they try to plead the Electoral College, the Republican members of it, to vote for Hillary instead, or at least not vote for Trump, so that Trump would get blocked from the office. And that just speaks to the absolute selfishness of these leftists, because can you believe how selfish and self-entitled you must be to think that even though the American people have voted, that you have to say about who is the best candidate, that you should tell the Electoral College who they should vote for. That don't listen to the public, don't listen to the American people, listen to me. I can tell you who's the moral choice.
Yeah, but their whining did not work.
Of course it didn't. There was only one Republican member of the college who said that he wouldn't vote for Trump, and even he didn't vote for Hillary. He voted for another Republican candidate who had already dropped out of the contest way before the final round. So of course it doesn't work. But it tells a lot about them that they would even try. Like, it's so absolutely disgusting.
On Twitter, I just found a link to a YouTube video with the title "Berlin Truck Attack Live Showing Dead Bodies." It's a 51-second video where you can actually see the bodies. Of course, the Berlin police said that you should not spread those videos, but I don't enjoy seeing dead people. But I think it's important that people see the reality. What is happening?
Of course, because we shouldn't sugarcoat this. People should see what's actually going on. And I'm trying to find that video so I could play it for you.
I can look
Isn't
it up.
I think it's...
No, it's not.
Yes, there.
Because it's important to show reality and not rely on documents or documentaries or.
So I cannot use the full screen mode because it doesn't work with the Hangouts, but I can share you a smaller image of that. So just a minute. So it's over here.
And a week or two ago, the Berlin police also there was an attack in October in the Berlin subway, in which Bulgarians, a gang of Bulgarians, kicked a woman that was walking down the stairs, and someone leaked the CCTV footage, and the Berlin police started to investigate who leaked it, and they were whining that it's illegal to, you are breaching their privacy and so on. So there's a weird idea that you should just let the officials work and not get involved. But of course, people are outraged. And a few days after the video was leaked, the guys were caught, or they were recognized. And so it's the same thing in Finland, that the police doesn't show the photos or videos, but they wait for weeks, and maybe then they show the thing, and it takes the day or two, and then the guys are caught.
And often they aren't even caught because the information about the crime is given so late, like weeks after, that there's no way of solving the crime. Like there was one attack on a woman in Finland in which the crime had already occurred 2 weeks ago by the time cops informed the public about it. And they gave some descriptions about the suspect. But what does that help anymore? Because the suspect is far away, and most likely people by then they don't even remember what had happened on that day. So if they had seen something, they wouldn't even remember it by then. And even in one occasion, when a woman fell victim to an attempted rape, the Finnish police gave the description of the suspect. No, not the suspect, but the victim. So they didn't describe the suspect in any way. They didn't say what he looked like, but they say what kind of pants the victim was wearing and how tall the victim was. So they avoided describing the suspect because he was a foreigner by saying what the victim looked like. So I don't know. I don't think most people are used to that. Like, at least in the American cop shows, I have never seen these American cops give descriptions about the victim of the crime instead of the suspect.
And I would be okay with that if we had a border control that would keep those suspects out of the country, so this wouldn't happen. Then maybe, but it's insane. This should not. They're invoking some weird regulations, but if the victim was a Muslim woman in a veil, then there would be no regulations. Then it would be broadcast on every mainstream media. So some people might call this a double standard, and this double standard is racism, which they claim to be fighting, but this fight seems to be more like encouraging racism.
And someone says in the comment section that Merkel must be a Muslim, that it's the only logical reason to do why she does what she does.
She's a communist.
Yeah, but it doesn't work like that because there's no logic in these people. It's useless to try and find any logical patterns in their behavior. Like Merkel, she's an old communist. Like she has been there in the times of Eastern Germany. And of course, being a German and a left-winger, she has a lot of Nazi guilt. And that, of course, affects her decision-making. And I think she wanted to cleanse the reputation of Germans by showing this wonderful generosity to the poor little refugees during the crisis. And also she wanted to create some sort of a legacy, like that she wanted to get the Nobel Peace Prize or something she could feel good about when she retires. And I don't think she honestly believes this will work, because it was like something like in the early 2000s that she already said that multiculturalism has failed in Germany, that all these Turks that moved in say 1970s and 1980s, that they haven't integrated. But now still she did this. So I don't think she honestly believes in integration or anything. I think it's more about an image thing. She wants to clean the reputation of Germans, and she wants to make some sort of a saint out of herself, like get those peace prizes and nice little perks like that before she retires. So, and when you think about these people who you see protesting against racism and for taking more refugees in, like of course there's no logic in them either. They are simply mostly these useful idiots, these feel-good people. They don't think about things. They aren't informed. They don't read the newspapers. They don't know the statistics. They don't know anything. They simply go with the feeling. They get invited to some anti-racist event. They go there. They get their feel-good from there. They get their virtue points from opposing something that they consider evil. They like taking part in some group activity. They like feeling that they are a part of something bigger. They like the acceptance they get from other people when they are against racism and for refugees. So there's no logic in these people. It's all about feeling, not about logic.
Yeah, it seems that the voters also vote by feeling, not by fact. Only the people who are affected or who live day by day with this bullshit, they change their voting habits, and then they get labeled as far right or racist. And it's weird that these tactics work or have worked for such a long time. Yeah.
But now they are starting to fail. Like, even though the American media run this and the global media ran this unimaginable smear campaign against Trump, he still won. Like, they put everything in it. Like, they kept shouting racism and sexism and misogyny and xenophobia and Islamophobia and all these things, and it didn't work. Like, it didn't scare people off. So clearly they have messed up their best weapon. Like, they have used the words racist and sexist and xenophobe so much that they have lost all meaning. And over here in Finland too, like, these anti-racists, they have called our president, who is very moderate, as racist and Nazi. They have called the ice hockey player Teemu Selänne a racist. So, and he's the most moderate, nicest guy you can imagine. So if those people are called racist, it's clear that the word racist doesn't mean anything. So it's starting to lose its effect. Like, people aren't as scared of that label as they used to be. And that's what's scaring these people shitless. And that's why these people are throwing this tantrum. Like, when all these leftists were so shocked and surprised about Trump's win or about Brexit going through in the referendum, it was mostly about them being surprised that their bullying tactics didn't work. And also it was about them suddenly realizing that they are completely out of touch, that they have thought that they represent the majority. They have thought that everyone else is like them, but suddenly they have to realize that most people think very differently than them. And it must be pretty heartbreaking to suddenly realize that you have been living in a bubble and you have no touch with reality. And that's also why they are now throwing this sort of reaction to the election results, that they are blaming everything, that they are blaming FBI, they are blaming James Comey, they are blaming fake news, they are blaming Putin. Everyone else is at fault but them. They don't see any fault in themselves, and that's why they are doomed to repeat these same mistakes over and over. They just can't fathom that there was something wrong with their policies, that maybe people are sick of these left-wing policies and how they have failed constantly, that they just can't understand it. And that's why they are doomed to repeat these mistakes over and over and keep failing. So do you have anything to say on this issue? Or?
No, not anymore.
Is there anything? Yeah, they talk about, yeah, Putin hacked Putin, very possibly. I have to say I'm pretty sick of hearing about Putin. Like, whenever something happens that's good for nationalists, that's good for right-wingers, it's always Putin is dragged into it. Like Putin rigged the election, Putin is behind Brexit, Putin is behind the nationalist movement in Finland. Putin funds us. Like I've been also called a Putinist, and it's been claimed that I get money from Putin. So I'm pretty sick of Putin. Like, no, I don't think he is that effective that he would be everywhere at once. Putin has his finger in every pie. I'm now checking for comments. So maybe, I don't know, we have been going on for almost 3 hours. So if there isn't anything new, then maybe we should move on to some audience questions if there are any. Okay, so you found something on Twitter.
Yeah.
Just wait a minute, we'll put the screen sharing on.
So this is how.
Yeah, the emergency plan in case of terrorist attack in a major European country. Tearful cartoons, yeah, that's pretty much it. Facebook fact filter, yeah. Light up some buildings, of course. I assume maybe tomorrow or tonight even they will light up the Empire State Building and most likely the Eiffel Tower with the colors of the German flag. Then continue letting millions of Muslims into your country. Exactly.
That picture is from Budapest, I think.
Wait for next terrorist attack and repeat. Exactly. Like I mentioned in the beginning that we are going through the same cycle again. Like it will start that there will be the generic signs of empathy. There will be the Facebook profile picture filters. There will be the hashtags. Then people will forget about it, and then when the next attack occurs, it will all start over.
This one is also good. So it starts the same.
Yeah, I think that's so accurate, that Ralph picture. I'm helping. Exactly. Isn't that, could you show that once more? I think it's so accurate. Like, do these people honestly believe their Facebook filters and prayers have any meaning or any impact on anything? I don't think they even believe that. I think it's all about virtue signaling, that they don't really care, they don't really have any empathy, they don't feel anything, they just see this trending on Twitter and they decide to jump on the bandwagon and go with it to gain some virtue points of their friends. So they make some posts about, oh, I'm so sorry for the terrible tragedy in Berlin. My thoughts and prayers are with you. Hashtag pray for Berlin. Hashtag Jesuit Berlin. And that's that. Then they feel like they have done their part in getting humanity on the right track. They have done their part against terrorism. Like it's enough.
So that's the hashtag to find all these.
Yes, I would actually. That guy is absolutely right. Do something. Don't fucking pray.
Yeah, this Bassam al-Baghdadi is, despite his name, he's a good guy. He lives in Sweden and he's a journalist, translator, and he started following me yesterday or 2 days ago, and I quickly looked up what he does, and he looks legit.
Hey, see what the police is saying. It is suspected that a truck was stolen from a construction site in Poland. The investigations are still ongoing.
Yeah, that's the account. You can also.
Polizei Berlin.
This Jana or Jana is Cleary and Einstein.
I see humans but no humanity. Oh my god, it's so terrible. People killing people. How could this happen? I don't think there's anything we can do about it. Let's just fucking pray. And what I find interesting is that when something like this happens, the first thing Finnish media does always is that they start talking about whether there were Finnish people involved in the accident. And of course, I understand that in a way it's interesting to hear if any Finnish people died. But they never talk about, okay, but even if Finnish people didn't die in this specific incident, is there something we can possibly do to prevent them from dying in further incidents?
But look at this moron, Haris Jafar. My thoughts and prayers are with the people of Berlin after today's Bereitscheidplatz attack, praying for safety and justice.
And
pray. What is praying? Praying is mumbling some words that have no
and fucking this
consequences. You instead of praying, vote.
And this absolute bullshit. This was caused by religion. This was caused by people who believe in irrational things without evidence. I don't think the same thing that caused this shit can be the solution for this shit.
Do not share photos and locations of emergency responders. This can put them in danger. How? Is it like another truck is coming? Or?
I'm sorry.
These are old tweets. You can.
What were the other things the police said over there? Oh, let's just look at this.
There's a poll. Who is guilty of this attack? Only the attacker, and the government, or the attacker and ISIS?
Vote and see how people have voted, or is it completely new?
Nope.
It's been going on for 3 hours. Vote. Let's see what people have said.
I would say this. But there's 3 people who have voted, so I was probably the first one to blame the government. But yes,
and that's also funny that when a Muslim commits a terrorist attack, the leftists, they start with, oh, it's only the attacker. You shouldn't blame the 1.6 billion Muslims for this. You shouldn't blame an entire religious group for this. But when a Trump supporter does something or is even suspected of doing something, it's all Trump supporters. When a Finnish nationalist does something, maybe say a neo-Nazi does something, it's all nationalists who are at fault. They are all violent. They are all dangerous. So it suddenly shifts.
Here's one. The state TV was somehow post-factual compared to the so-called fake news, and this is ZDF, which is a German state TV show, who have tweeted that around 8 p.m. Happened an accident.
Accident.
Yeah, unfall is accident. A Polish truck driver was run over in the crowd, and the source that is claimed is the Berlin fire department. But this is complete bullshit. Okay.
Polish truck driver was run over.
Yeah, gerast, I think it's run over. But I'm not a fluent German speaker. Here's one with a smiley. The attacker fled to Poland, killed the Polish driver, and came back over the border to Germany. This is the type of stupid guys who have no clue of anything. Oh, here's one.
Pray for Berlin. Holy shit.
What is that red smiley?
Don't try it. I think you've used that on occasionally too.
Überraschung means surprise. The headline is that the driver could have come as a refugee to Germany, and he would have come on the February 16th.
And about this, I would like to mention that about a year ago, or a bit more than a year ago, there was this Finnish researcher who claims to be an expert on these terrorism issues. And when asked if ISIS terrorists or other extremists could infiltrate our country by coming over here as asylum seekers, he said that it's a fairy tale, that could never happen. That it's like the story of the Little Red Riding Hood, absolutely unrealistic. Then, of course, it turned out that hundreds of people with extremist background and with terrorist connections had come to this country as asylum seekers. 2 of them are now being prosecuted for taking part in the Camp Speicher massacre, and one of them had killed 11 people in there. They were most likely Iraqi army members ISIS had captured that were killed. And later on, when it turned out that, yeah, terrorists do come over here as asylum seekers, the newspapers interviewed that fucking same so-called expert who had a year ago claimed that no, it's a fairy tale. And now this guy had changed his story, but still he was interviewed as he was some sort of expert.
And this expert works at the Institute of Foreign Politics of Finland. His name is Teemu Sinkkonen. But yeah, this the Welt newspaper here in blue, it said that according to their information, is the driver would be a Pakistani refugee that had entered Germany in February.
So a recent asylum seeker.
But this is not confirmed by the authorities.
So it's basically that some cops said so, but they aren't willing to officially confirm it.
Yeah. But we should have a look at the Finnish broadcasting company. They said they would be following this car accident.
So they are saying investigation is ongoing. 9 dead in Berlin attack, 50 injured.
But there's...
They have no mention of the person being Pakistani or an asylum seeker.
No.
Of course not. I bet they are praying over there right now, but not for Berlin. They are praying for the guy not being a Pakistani asylum seeker. Like they are withholding that information for as long as they can. But when like a dozen different official sources have confirmed that they will have to publish it, and like they will be very sorry to do so.
This is again a proof that the asylum system is a scam, because we let anybody enter the country, and well, assuming that this guy is from Pakistan and he's a Muslim and he commits Islamic terrorism here, why is this guy let in the country and why he's not expelled after investigation? If he's been since February. Now it's December. He's been for 10 months there. How is it? How is it that nobody has noticed that? Okay, it's probably easy to in the asylum interviews to act like you're like you are you need an asylum because you have been you don't feel safe in Pakistan because there's so many Muslims, but still they here it says we are sorry for the victims. What is this? This is probably the killed Polish. He doesn't look Pakistan. He might be, but I'm not sure. He's probably the dead guy who was hijacked.
Pray for Berlin and all that. I feel a bit of sarcasm in there.
Yeah, it's a good night, Berlin. Stay strong. Okay, what is this? The real victims of the Berlin attack are the immigrants.
Holy shit! Is that no?
Yeah,
no, it's some joke account. The safest space. That must be some joke account.
Let's have a look.
No, but there are real tweets about it. Unbelievable and sad. Now it will double fuel the hate towards immigrants and tool in the hands of the far right. So these people, they think it's a far right that's the real enemy. Those people who haven't killed anyone.
Innocent immigrants will have to suffer. Sure thing.
And this is another thing that they always say, oh, there will be a backlash against Muslims. When has such occurred? When has a Muslim, say, being killed in, say, Paris or anywhere in France, in Germany, because of this so-called backlash? They always say, oh, there will be backlash, but it never comes. It's all hype. It's all just this made-up bullshit to make Muslims appear as the victims when they are actually the evildoers and the enablers of this.
Yeah, but these are random citizens tweeting, but they are so brainwashed that.
But we have politicians who believe in that same thing.
Like, yeah, of course.
If we would get the honest opinions of the left-wing politicians over here in Finland, they would say exactly the same thing. Of course, they don't know better than to tweet that kind of stuff right after a terrorist attack. They know they will get a lot of shit for it, but that's what they really think. That's what they really feel. And I could actually check out if the anti-racists in Finland have noticed this yet.
This car accident.
They often simply ignore this kind of events, that if something happens that doesn't fit their ideology, they simply ignore it. They don't post it on their Facebook groups or anything. They just don't talk about it. But let's see if they have noticed this one and are willing to say something about it. Say if you find anything there. Okay, no, yeah, they are saying something about it. There's this immigration critical European Parliament member, Jussi Halla-aho, who has said that apparently Allah has been great, at least in Ankara and in Berlin. And he has this way of making these sarcastic comments on Facebook. And these anti-racists immediately go, disgusting that someone would throw this kind of humor about serious, gruesome deeds. Shame on him. So they immediately try to find some other bad guy. The bad guy isn't the guy who drove the fucking truck into the crowd. It's Jussi Halla-aho for tweeting something sarcastic about Islam. It's he who's the fucking bad guy. Of course, they try to find some other guy to blame for this. And let's see if there's something else. And they have even written a blog post about that, bitching about that one fucking comment.
If Halla-aho hadn't written that afterwards, maybe it hadn't happened.
You could maybe show Halla-aho's Facebook
yes.
wall there or something about him.
The problem is that there's so it's this one.
So this is the bad guy, Jussi Halla-aho, this innocent-looking guy. He is the bad guy for this one post, not the guy who plowed the truck into the crowd, killing 9 people. Oh my God, and listen to what this anti-racist says. There's this one anti-racist called Jori Eskolin, who has a ridiculous blog in Finnish. And he says, we are at war against the jihadis, and then we have groups of people whose isolation and bad treatment may create a breeding ground for extremist thinking and hatred. So he's already blaming us for these terrorist attacks. He says that it's the Germans, they treat these people badly, they isolate them. So this guy just had to drive this truck into the crowd. He had no other choice because he was the victim. Holy shit. I just can't believe these people.
And these morons.
And he says, we have jihadism, we have racism, we have the far right, we have separatism. Like you can compare those, like racism is any sort of problem in comparison with jihadism. Nobody has died of racism, but jihadism kills people all the time. Like over 99% of the people who have been killed in terrorist attacks in Europe in the last year have been killed by jihadis.
Well, aren't jihadists also racist?
And okay, here we go. We must not forget that these ethnic and religious minorities have already been here and have always been here. If we fail, if we still keep failing in integrating these people and making them citizens, it will only lead to hate and bloodshed. And that's why we can't close our eyes from the problems of integration, but we must act. So he says, if we fail in the integration, it's our fault again.
This happened in fucking Germany, not in Finland.
And how is it that Germans' responsibility to integrate these people? Like in
but he says we, is this moron a German?
In the 19th century, a lot of Finnish people moved to the USA and they still live there. And they have these communities in, say, Minnesota. And nobody integrated them. Nobody put millions of dollars in integrating them, giving them language courses and stuff like that. They did it themselves, and that's how it's supposed to happen. You can't integrate other people. You have to integrate by yourself.
Look at this dork.
This is the guy who's writing this shit we are reading right now.
Yeah. But he says we.
Like we Finnish people are responsible for this.
That car accident happened in Berlin, which is not Finland. Berlin is in Germany, not in Finland. And there's these ethnic and religious minorities have here, and they have always been there. How?
And there's this soft bigotry of lowered expectations. He says Jussi Halla-aho moved by those waters which he has always moved on. He invokes fear and disgust, and that's what his entire career mooching of the society has been about. He has nothing else to offer. So Jussi Halla-aho, being an immigration critical EU Parliament member, he's completely responsible for everything he does. Nobody has isolated him. Nobody has discriminated against him. So he's to blame. He's to blame for every nasty thing that happens. But if a Muslim does something, it's the white people's fault, because Muslims don't have any responsibility. These people treat brown people like these brown people are some sort of morons, like they are retarded, and they have no responsibility over their actions. So white people have to guide them into being good people. And if white people fail to guide them into act normally, if white people don't get them to integrate into our society and adopt the correct values, it's our fault if the brown people start blowing up.
Yeah, and he says that these ethnic minorities and whatever have always been here. He's wrong, because here I'm showing a short, it's a small book from the immigration office, and the headline is that the Pakistanis were looking for work in 1971 in Finland, and in 71 there were 72 Pakistanis looking for asylum in Finland, but they were from West Pakistan and not East Pakistan, which is also called Bangladesh, in which there was an independence fight. And so the 72 that were here in Helsinki, they did not look for asylum. They were claiming that if we get a job, we will work like machines. And they were expecting work permits. But they also mentioned their homeland's political crisis. And the Foreign Office, which is
the Immigration Office,
yeah,
Migri.
Immigration, the thing that gives residence permits to anybody nowadays. The Immigration Office told that if we let them here in, they will stay here forever. And for example, we have some vacancies at the restaurants where we might need some people to wash dishes, but we cannot grant them permits, because if we do that, we will not get rid of these people. We could give a work permit if we were certain that they go back to their countries when a Finnish person needs their job, and that they leave with their own money and not ours. And so these 72 Pakistanis, I have read this before, and I know that they left to Norway. And as we know, Norway currently has a Pakistani problem, like as Germany does.
And UK.
And of course UK. And in that time in Finland, we had a sane policy that
we didn't want people, or we didn't take people in if we didn't see any benefit from it. Like if there were clearly economic migrants who didn't escape any real persecution, we didn't take them in if they weren't useful for us in any way.
And translate this.
I was working at that time in Turku, where we as officials running this immigration control had to look after this group. The residence was found from a hostel run by the city of Turku. The mistress of the hostel told about a group of women who had called about taking good care of them. She told that she had told the callers that even if you change the sheets every day, the cleanliness wouldn't stay. Even the toilet walls had been smeared with feces, and people had defecated on the floor. Was it simply ignorance or demonstration? We couldn't find out. The people were angry at the police about them gathering everyone's passports. And while I was looking at the passports, I spotted some forgeries about the dates.
The validity of the permit.
Yes, the validity dates of the permits. After which I gathered the entire group for talking to, and I explained to them my forgery findings. Everyone wanted to know whose passport was forged, so I told that whoever feels a sting in his heart can come get his passport while he's leaving the country. And on the next day, I already had a line at me asking for a permit to exit the country. Forging the passport around the globe might be a severe offense, unlike in other countries it has always been. We made sure they left the country.
And the mainstream media was writing stories that were for the Pakistanis, but as the year went on, even the mainstream media started to be against the Pakistanis. And only a small portion of the Pakistanis managed to stay in Finland since they found a wife. And contrary to the refugees from Chile, there were no interest groups. And this last part is thanks to this procedure, Finland did not witness the invasion of Pakistanis, and Norway instead
tens of thousands of Pakistanis ended up there.
Yeah. So think about this, that in Finland we said that fuck off and we don't have a Pakistani problem, but Norway has. And also Germany has, and this is a nice documentary that explains the history of migration in Finland, and it's interesting to see how it was back in the days.
And about this anti-racist psychopath Jori Eskolin, whose article I have been reading over here, he continues that it's easy to profile Jussi Halla-aho as a cynical dick, as a dead soul. Jussi Halla-aho has never understood what human integrity or the values everyone share are. He doesn't care about them because to him a human being is only a creature measured by the benefit he causes, and to him blood is only something he can bathe in while the bodies are still warm. So here, imagine, like, this guy wrote a 2-row Facebook post, this Jussi Halla-aho, and he's the bad guy bathing in blood, and he's a dead soul and a cynical dick, and he says nothing about the guy who ran over a crowd of people, killing 9 people. Like, it's this guy who's the bad guy. Like, these are such psychopaths. Like, I have always said these people are psychopaths. They are so able to look past real human suffering to find that ideologically perfect bad guy, that they don't care about the rape victims, they don't care about the terrorism victims, they only care about their ideology, and they are willing to look over any amount of bloodshed to explain away the problems of their ideology. So these are complete psychopaths, but I still never fail to be pretty shocked about how they are. I really don't know what to say about this. Like, when there have been rapes over here in Finland, this same group, I have talked about this group before. This is an anti-racist group called Rasmus. And there was this rape in Kempele of a 14-year-old girl. And over here in Rasmus group, they were talking about the victim possibly being a Nazi. The 14-year-old religious girl being a Nazi because she got raped by an Afghani asylum seeker. So, and even one middle-aged woman, imagine that, she said that there are all sorts of little bitches in the world. You shouldn't underestimate the connivingness of women. So that's what this anti-racist had to say about a 14-year-old girl who got raped by an asylum seeker. These are absolute psychopaths. Like, these people live in a world of their own, and they have absolutely no morals. All they have is ideology. And I just have to wonder at how these people don't stop and think that, okay, I am now talking shit about a 14-year-old rape victim. What am I doing right here? Like, how did I end up here? Am I possibly doing the wrong thing over here? No, these people, they don't stop and wonder. And it's the same thing with the terrorist thing. Like, they are so quick to think that it's the racists and the Islamophobes who are the real bad guys in the situation, because they benefit from the situation. They milk these terrorist attacks. So it's them who write Facebook posts about Muslims who are the bad guys, not the people who run other people over, gouge people's eye out in Bataclan, shoot people in a nightclub, or maybe shoot people in cafes, or blow up in the Brussels airway station. So, as I said, psychopaths. I honestly believe that there's no getting to these people. So I never really start to argument to these people or try to argue for my points, because I know these people are fundamentalists. The majority of these anti-racists, they are basically the useful idiot type. They are in there for the feel good. They don't have that ideological foundation these people have. They aren't convinced of the ideology. So you can get to them if you have good enough arguments and enough facts on your side. But these people, these hardliners, they are like religious fundamentalists. You can never get to them. No matter what would happen, even if they themselves got attacked, they would still make excuses for these immigrants. They would still try to explain it all away. And there's even this one perfect example of this. When the one anti-immigration crowd was holding a demonstration against, I don't remember what it was about, but it was about something immigration related in Helsinki. And this one woman who was walking past the demonstration, she dropped by, and there was an open mic, and she started explaining how she had gotten raped by migrants twice, and she still was worried about the racism these migrants might face. She wasn't worried about the rapings, but the racism. So I really had to wonder, like, how many times do they have to rape this woman before she comes to her senses? Like, that's the level of brainwashing. Like, imagine being raped 2 times by these people and you're still making excuses for them and thinking they are the victims.
This guy, Jori Eskolin, he has written a blog about me, and it was Junes Lokka doesn't exist. So I don't exist. Whatever, but he's wrong. He's all the time wrong. And that video about the woman saying that I got raped twice, but the racists are bad. It's not a long video. Maybe we will subtitle it, but it's a mental patient apparently that is whining that why are people demonstrating against immigration, because the worst that has happened is that I got twice raped. That's yeah. In the comment section, there's this Alexandra Mesre. When the Somali murderer murdered Alexandra Mesre in Sweden, the chief of Swedish police went on television and said how Swedes must feel sorry for the murderer because he probably had a tough childhood in Somalia. Okay. With the feminist definition of rape, she was probably only looked at twice and felt threatened. No, she was actually raped.
Yeah, and I actually have heard of that case from a newspaper. The situation when something like the woman was walking to a railway station in Helsinki, and she got raped by, I don't know, maybe 2 of these foreigners. And then after that rape had happened, she was looking for help, and she ran into another immigrant who also raped her. So they happened on the same night. I think it's that situation. So I don't know, maybe if she reaches like 5 rapes, maybe then she will consider. I don't know.
Yeah, there's also comments saying that Chileans won't form rape gangs and drive trucks into your Christmas markets. So if you need immigrants, import Chileans, not fucking Pakis. But we don't need immigrants. But Chileans had also the advantage that some of them went back to their country. And
yeah, here they are talking about Muslim women not being allowed to date non-Muslim men. And of course it's so, like, the white men are the big losers over here, because the brown men, of course, and these migrant men, they can date and want to date the local women, but the Muslim women, they of course wouldn't never date local non-Muslim men, nor would they be allowed to do so. So the local men, they are basically left out of the entire situation.
yeah, but since they are racists, who cares? But yeah, also one writes, Muslim men can date anyone, but they will force their girlfriend or wife to become Muslim, and like a dog who follows their master. Yeah, that's true.
Yes, and somebody asks about the Swedish woman in the wheelchair that was raped, and I have asked about that a couple of times, but apparently it's in a complete media blackout. There's nothing being said about that story. But I could have my friend ask for the court papers for that one. So if I only knew when the trial is, so know when to ask for them.
Which thing?
The woman who was raped, who was in a wheelchair.
In Sweden.
Yeah.
There's one comment in jaha, dänkki maistunut. Eikö dänkki ole? You are wrong.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
I think he's saying that we have smoked some weed, but that's incorrect. We have not smoked. We haven't inhaled and so on. But yeah, we are just reading comments now. I think we have, since we have...
We've gone on for almost 4 hours.
Yeah. So...
yeah, they are saying you will fall asleep soon. Any minute now.
We were, 4 hours, but we were praying for Berlin. We were praying for police reports, but all we got was unconfirmed reports. So.
I'm just trying to see if there's anything in the comment section. Yeah, and people talk about these rapes, and I am planning to do a video about those. And one person asked me for a video about the Erling Kranz murder, and the other one of the that recently happened in Germany, that Maria
Landenberger.
Yes, her. But I think those are pretty well covered. Like if you Google search them, you will find a lot of material in English about them. So I most likely will only cover those pretty shortly, but I will take on some other crimes that happened over here in Finland, of which you most likely won't get any information of, like the Abdikadir Osman Hussein case. And that guy is a Somali guy who has killed a 15-year-old girl, raped a 4-year-old and stuff like that. And he is now in protective custody. He was released from prison, but the officials immediately took him into custody to wait for him to get deported. So I will talk about that. And the Afghan guy who raped and burned his 17-year-old Finnish girlfriend. And they asked Swan, did you hear about the electoral votes today in America? No, I most likely have not, because I've been here for hours.
No, that.
So what do they say?
Well, Trump is becoming president.
Of course he is, but did something happen in there?
Mm.
I heard about that one member from Texas, that he was going to not vote for Trump as a protest because he didn't trust that maybe there was some Russian involvement. He thought there was enough intelligence on that.
There's using the hashtag for Berlin. There's people sending cat pictures.
Why?
When there was a few years ago in Brussels or somewhere a terrorist attack, there was a Twitter campaign that urged people to send cat pictures.
Why?
It's flooding Twitter with nonsense content, so people cannot
get to the real content.
Yeah.
The images from the scene.
But
Yeah.
This is probably the third cat picture that I saw this time.
And as if that does
So
something.
it's not working anymore.
Yeah, and as if that would do anything anyway, because was it about the lockdown?
I'll check.
Brussels lockdown or something like that. Wait a minute, I'll have to Google.
No. It was this thing.
Yeah, so what is that about?
Nobody knows.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about this.
No, it's not that.
Yeah, because there was this other thing about when there was some police operation going on in Brussels, and some people were taking photos of the police and posting them on social media. And it was a threat to the police operations, because like that, people can see where the police are, so they know what to expect of them. So people started posting these cat photos to flood Twitter, so that these police operations would be safe. But of course, it doesn't help at all,
Yes.
because if someone is hell-bent on finding where the police are, they will notice it. These cat pictures won't help at all.
Okay, yeah, yes, it was those. But yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll take a look at the couple of last comments. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going. Thanks, Unit and Tina. Great stream. Bye, every other con. Okay, bye. And I don't know, is there anything else? And how about Russia and Trump? Any truth in that? I have no idea. Let's wait for what the investigations say. And I don't think it matters anyway. What effect could it possibly have if it turned out that Russians had their finger on the scale? Like, Trump is the president. There's no way to get around that. So even if it turned out so, the Democrats, they wouldn't have a shot. They could bitch about it all they want, but Trump is still the president. So deal with it. But maybe it's time to end. We have been going on for 4 hours almost. So maybe we should call it a night. Well, thank you for listening. Bye.
It's 3 a.m. here.